What day is it?
Today's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday.
Hey, sorry I woke you up.
Time to get up.
It's time to get up.
You know I do not get up at times.
You're the reason people wake up in the morning.
Don't kiss me. Morning breath.
What time do you have?
Oh, time for work.
Ready to start the day.
Everyone have a good show.
It's showtime.
Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. Welcome in on a Tuesday morning. Well. We have spent so much time talking about NIL, and now, can you believe it? We've got another NIL lawsuit. And it is filed by the 1983 NC State NCAA championship basketball team, saying the NCAA used the Wolfpack's name, image, and likeness and made millions. And now they want a reasonable share of that. And you're thinking, wait a minute. If the whole team is suing, then that means Thurl Bailey is. Well, first off, the whole team is not suing. The guy who made the game-winning dunk, Lorenzo Charles, passed away more than a decade ago. So obviously he's not involved. And Derek Wittenberg, who took the potential game-winning shot that turned out to be an air ball because, that's a long way. He works for the NC State Athletic Department. You're thinking, wait a minute, if he works for the NC State Athletic Department and he sues the NCAA, wouldn't that be awkward? Couldn't that potentially? Yes, I think you're right. It could. Which is why Derek Wittenberg's not in the suit. But 10 other players are, including our own Thurl Bailey. So we'll see if Thurl wants to come on and talk about this, or, if he can't comment on an ongoing legal matter. We'll see how that plays out. But I thought that was the interesting college basketball story of the day. The interesting story in the pros was the Laker head coaching search goes on. Yeah, it turns out Dan Hurley would rather stay at UConn, make a lot of money, and scream at college players than go to the NBA, make a lot of money, scream at pro players, and probably get fired in a couple of years. So he passes. I'm sure it was worth his while to stay at UConn, and he's got back-to-back titles, so they ought to compensate him well because he has done a lot for that school and that basketball program, and he'll stay in the college ranks, presumably. Who knows what offer tomorrow might bring, but like Mike Krzyzewski a generation ago, the preeminent coach thought about it, looked at it, thought about it, and then said no thanks. So the Lakers search goes on. And so does the Stanley Cup Final. Edmonton tied 1-1 going to the third period, gave up 3 goals, lost 4-1. Florida's up 2-0. That doesn't lock it up, but all-time Stanley Cup Finals, the team that goes up 2-0 is 49-5. So, 10-1 favorites right there. And that continues Thursday. NBA Finals continues Wednesday, tomorrow, and then the NHL play their Game 3 on Thursday. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, Bob Casper, Real Golf Radio, talking about Scottie Scheffler, looking back at the Memorial, looking ahead to the U.S. Open, and enjoying, great stories. Great Marshmallow story. He and PK, separate trips to the same golf Valhalla, probably one of the 2 or 3 best places to go on a golf vacation in the United States. That's next. Stay with us. Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. Bob Casper joined us yesterday, late in the show. Let's talk about Scottie Scheffler winning for the 5th time this year, and the U.S. Open is coming up later this week. But also, PK's back from a golf vacation, and it is a premier destination. And Bob Casper's been there and has a great story about alligators and marshmallows. So here's Bob with PK and I. We were just wondering if you spent another weekend staring lovingly at Scheffler as he just worked his way around the course and won the Memorial. Your guy, it seems almost effortless sometimes. It was one stroke, a one-stroke win, so I guess there was a little effort involved.
Yeah, there was, and it got a little close at the end. But I'll tell you what, that guy's on a heater, man. He's 5, 6 wins this year?
5. Yep.
5 wins, and the other couple are top 10s, a second and an 8th at the PGA Championship, and yeah, he's a guy that it's almost like, when we go to majors, we were wondering, who was going to win, and we'd make our picks, and it was Tiger against the field. Well, it's Scottie against the field right now.
Do you think only the cops have prevented him from getting the Grand Slam this year?
Well, I don't know necessarily about that, PK, because he came back after that arrest and shot, a low round. He shot a 66, 5 under par, and 4 under par in the first round. But I think where the hiccup came was probably coming off of that and also not having his caddy on the bag for Saturday because Teddy Scott went to Louisiana and went to his daughter's graduation. So I think he really missed out. The calming influence, the influence that Teddy Scott has really made in his game and being able to help him maneuver around the golf course. Scotty, Teddy basically makes the call and they agree upon it, and then Scotty executes it. And it was perfect. I watched it last Thursday in the afternoon on the 18th hole, and he was totally not committed to the shot that he was expecting to hit into the 18th green. And Teddy walked him through it, said the wind, you can feel the wind coming down the trees this way, but it's actually going this way, and that's a perfect club. And he got over the ball, and he hit it 2 feet from the hole. So that's the kind of thing that happens when you've got a guy on the bag that's involved and really helps you through the process of getting through the golf course. And I think he lacked that on that Saturday when Teddy went to his daughter's graduation.
So you would put Teddy ahead of Meredith?
Meredith?
Yeah.
Meredith?
Yes, Meredith.
Well, see, now that's Meredith's off the golf course, okay?
I see her on the golf course. What are you talking about?
No,
she's
I'm
holding little
talking-
Johnny.
Yeah, but she's not doing anything to help him execute shots and help him play the game. When he's in between the ropes, he's not worried about everything that's going on around him, the people, the crowds, his wife, his little guy.
He forgets about Meredith?
He's trying to stay present in every single shot that he hits into the greens and in his round.
How seriously are you taking PK right now? About 40%?
I'm not taking him very seriously.
Okay, lower than 40 then. Lower than 26 maybe.
No, I'd say
I'm
lower
taking
than
myself
10.
extremely seriously.
You are not.
The disrespect for Meredith is appalling.
In all seriousness here, all the weekend hackers hear you talk about this and think, can a caddy really be worth that many strokes?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Scotty Scheffler, before Ted Scott took the bag, had not won on the PGA Tour. He was top 35 or something like that after a year or so, almost 2 years. He had not won on the PGA Tour. In the last 2.5 to 3 years that Teddy's been on the bag, he's won now 11 times with a major. That's a big difference. Almost like a difference of Steve Williams on Tiger Woods' bag and getting all the majors except for fluff with the first one with the Masters. And it's amazing what Teddy has done. The calming influence. They're very similar. They're really good friends, and I think he really helps Scotty be focused on the golf course to be able to play his best golf.
So it's going at a high level, but where will it go? Where do you expect it can go? Where do we anticipate it going?
Well, PK, that's the only thing we have to worry about is how far it's going to go. How long is this window going to stay open? Is it going to stay open for a few years, like a Justin Thomas or Jordan Spieth or that kind of thing, or is it going to stay open for a career, like 10 years, 12 years, 20 years? And only he can determine what's going to happen with that. His responsibilities with, as you were talking about just a second ago, Meredith and the new baby, that was the first win that he had as a father. And immediately as he walked up the hill, Meredith was there to congratulate him, and he grabbed his little boy, and he sat there and hugged him. And I thought that was a great moment. But a lot of things can happen, and this is what I told Brian Taylor, back when Tiger started on his tear. Can he stay healthy? Will he have any injuries? How committed will he be to the game for the next 10 to 12 years? But he's the kind of player right now where he's at the age of 27. He's got a lot in front of him if he stays focused.
trust him to win back-to-back weeks? That's hard to do.
Oh, yeah. I know it's hard to do, but yeah, and the golf course is a perfect golf course for him. Not saying that it's not a perfect golf course for anybody else, but it is a perfect golf course for him. Another guy that's kind of an outlier that might be a good pick. So listen to this: is Cam Smith. He's coming off LIV, but he plays golf courses very similar to Pinehurst number 2 in the Sandbelt in Australia. So this might be he's a great chipper and a great putter. This might be a really good week for him. But Scotty is great hitting it point to point. He always seems like he hits the ball to the right number into the greens, and these greens are going to be difficult because they're kind of an upside down turtleback. They're not scooped. They reject shots. They're rounded off the edges and that kind of thing. And Scotty is a phenomenal chipper, and getting the ball close to the hole to conserve his pars. And he's gotten a lot better with his putting. So I just can't pick anybody else than him for this coming major championship.
Well, that's high praise, that. If you literally can't conceive someone else winning, it's amazing as far as that, how far he has come in just, 2 years?
2.5 years.
Yeah.
2.5 years. Yep.
I mean,
that's exactly right.
Have we would we have forecasted it? Well, the answer would be no.
No.
And as you look at it, I can't disagree with what you're saying, but I'm just wondering, how did he get to this point?
Well, he's always been a good player. There's a lot of guys that have played with him in junior golf, and he was always right there. My son Ashton, he worked for the Texas Golf Association for a few years in the Dallas area, and he said, he and Jordan Spieth were wiping up on everything with the Texas Junior Golf Association and that kind of thing. So he comes out, he goes to college. He plays extremely well at Texas and plays great golf there. Then he goes out on the he qualifies for the Web.com tour where he wins there. And then it took him a couple of years to figure it out on the PGA Tour. But I'll tell you what, he's winning in a clip that's amazing right now. And like I said before, it's right now it's Scotty Scheffler in the field.
Did you know PK had a nice little golf vacation? Name your.
I heard about that.
Yeah, your favorite golf vacation spots.
My favorite?
Yeah.
Well, I think Hilton Head is one of them. Absolutely. I think Michigan is another good one. We've been there a few times, and there's some phenomenal golf courses there. Forest Dunes and American Dunes. That's a phenomenal place for golf. Bandon would be great. Bandon Dunes, Stream Song in Florida, great. Pinehurst, they have 10 courses there at Pinehurst that you can play on, including number 2 where the U.S. Open is going to be this week. So Pinehurst is what the USGA and what we think of as the cradle of golf for the United States. And then on the West Coast, you think of the Monterey Peninsula. I could live in the Monterey Peninsula for the rest of my life and be so happy. And to be able to play those golf courses around there and in San Francisco are phenomenal as well.
How about the Bandon that you said? What about the weather there, though?
It's tough, PK. It's really tough because it's always windy. If you go up there and you kind of hit it in the shoulder season, October or whatever, it's going to be raining, it's going to be windy, and it's going to be really tough. But I'll tell you what, they've got some great golf courses. They got a great par 3 course. I think they're building another one. But when you think of the Pacific Northwest, you got to think of Bandon Dudes for a trip. It's kind of in its own little realm. You got to fly into Eugene or into Portland and drive there. But it's a great place. It's a great place. But if I had to choose between going to Monterey Peninsula and Bandon Dunes, I'd hands down go to Monterey Peninsula every time.
So you two have been to Hilton Head. Tell the people about it. How awesome is it?
What do you think, PK? Tell me.
No, I thought it was absolutely incredible, and not just the golf, too. As I told my wife, I put too much pressure on myself. Oh, this is a golf vacation, so if I suck, then my vacation is going to be ruined. And that's what it was early in the week. And so then we created, all right, instead of going like 10, 11 in the morning, we'll go at 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and we'll have an activity during the day. And so, like, when I get to the course, I've already had a successful day no matter what I do. And that was... It took the pressure off because I'm a mental midget when it comes to golf. There's no question about it. And
did you play Hilton Head?
You're talking about where they played the Heritage?
Yeah.
It was closed.
Oh, bummer.
They were not just reseeding the greens, but it looked like the fairways. But you know what was cool about that, though, Bob, is because it was closed, and we rented bikes twice in that Sea Pines area, and I got to then ride the bike. I rode the bike on all the holes to get a feel for it. We did the front.
So you just get on the cart path and go.
Yeah.
Because there's nobody out there.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's just some workers out there.
Yeah.
And then stopping to taking about 100 pictures along the way. So in a sense, it was cool that it was closed because I got to experience it for free and stop and take pictures and just look and examine and do all that stuff and not have to worry about keeping up with the next group.
Yeah. You know, that golf course is interesting because it's more of a shot maker's golf course.
No question.
You have to hit it point to point.
Right.
It's only 7,000 yards, where the U.S. Open this week is going to be pushing 7,600 yards.
Yep.
But so, did you see any alligators?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
How close?
Well, I'll send you a picture because it was super funny. In that my wife had
lost a shoe.
No.
Okay, good.
just a leg.
Hey-o.
But there was she likes to play these. I can't even think of the name. But they're orange and pink and Volex, I think, something like that.
Volvic.
Yeah. And so they got these lagoons or these ponds all over the place. There's thousands of them. Literally.
Oh, yeah.
And so she hit one that couldn't have gone in more than 2 feet tops. You could reach down, but 2 feet away from that was here, DJ, look in the circle on the one side where you see the ball. Now look to your left, and what's there?
A gator. I'm really not interested in getting that ball. I wouldn't even use the extendo ball retriever thing because the gator would probably bite it and wreck it, and then you have to buy a new one. That ball's that's just lost.
Yeah.
So I was caddying for my dad on the Champions Tour, and we were playing there one week at Hilton Head. It was a Champions Tour event. Arnold ended up winning the tournament. But we were on the way to the golf course on Monday morning, and he goes, "We got to stop by the grocery store." I said, "Why? What are we going to the grocery store now for?" And he goes, "We got to get some marshmallows." I said, "Marshmallows?" And he goes, "Yeah." So we go and we get a bag of the big oversized marshmallows. And I said, "What are we going to do with these marshmallows?" And he goes, "When we see a gator, we'll throw it into them." And I said, "Really?" So we're on the 8th hole, and there's a little pond down the right-hand side that's really not in play or anything. And of course, there's a gator laying right in the middle of the water. And he goes, "Okay, take that marshmallow, throw it out in front of that gator." So I threw it out there in the pond, and that gator just slowly cruised over it to where he hit his nose with the marshmallow, opened up his mouth, grabbed the marshmallow, and started chewing on it, and it was stretching between his teeth. My dad got the biggest kick out of that. He laughed so hard. And we were throwing marshmallows to the gators the whole way around.
Yeah, I mean, they're all over the place, and
they are.
And so I played 5 times, played 4 courses. We played one twice, Shipyard, I think it was called.
Oh yeah, that's a good course.
Oh
you bet.
Yeah, and they were all just drop dead gorgeous.
Yeah,
it's just amazing to me. I'd never been in a place like that.
Well, and it's a different type of golf there too. It's more of a seaside almost. You know, you're in the pines and the pine straw and all that kind of thing. It's really cool compared to what you would know here.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
With mountain and just normal parkland golf, as they say it. So.
And then we rode bikes on the beach, which just seemed like endless amounts of beach that was there. It was really spectacular.
The beach. Yeah. It's Hilton Head is a phenomenal place, and if you ever get a chance to go, you need to go, DJ. You need to go. It's awesome. Did you have any seafood?
Oh yeah, absolutely, man.
Oh yeah,
fish
absolutely.
tacos out the yin yang.
Oh yeah,
literally.
No, the seafood is really good there because everything comes in fresh.
Shrimp salad repeatedly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That Shelter
really
Cove.
Good.
Did you go over there? Shelter Harbor, or is it called?
Yep.
Yeah, the views were just incredible, man. Off the charts. That was one picture I sent you of the sun with the boats.
Yeah.
Yeah. That place was sweet. It was. I can't say enough good things. It was hot, but the weather. Other than that, hot everywhere. I guess it was really spectacular.
I'm glad you had a great time because that's a great place. Absolutely.
All right, Bob, we appreciate it as always. It's open week, so we'll talk to you later in the week. When we come back, we're talking hoops with Pace Mannion, the former Ute and Jazz player. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. PK and I had Pace Mannion on late in yesterday's show, and he joined us to talk about the NBA Finals, and you'll hear a few last night references. And he's obviously talking about Game 2 Sunday, but also about potential Jazz draft picks going forward and the way NIL is changing college basketball. Here's Pace with PK and I. Pace, good morning.
Good morning. How we doing?
So glad to catch you in the country. I never know where you're going to be when I text you now.
Yeah, well, it's I'm really busy.
Busy going to Italy to watch your kid play basketball. But yeah, you're busy.
Yeah, that's busy. That's busy, right?
And everybody has a different definition of busy, and that's yours.
That's true.
Base's mother had recently passed, and for some reason I came across the obituary, and I told him, I said it would have been easier to list all the things his mother didn't do and accomplish in life.
Now that's busy.
Wow, right? Man, what a life she had.
And she hated long obituaries, and I'm sure she wasn't happy with that one that my dad wrote. So, you know,
that's a very specific thing.
To get to the grave before he did it to her. So
that's a very specific thing to dislike. Long obituaries. It's very specific.
Yeah, no, but see, you know, it's funny because it's one of the first things she would read in the paper because you know as you get older, you're looking for friends that have passed. She was 87, and so she would look at him and she'd say, "This is just way too long." And I'd just say, "Well, they must have had a lot to say, Mom. Just let it. It's okay." But she didn't like him for some reason, and heck, we had to cut. We couldn't put a picture. We had to take lines out because my dad wrote such a long one, and I was dealing with the newspaper to get it all put in, and it wasn't easy. But we got it done. It was a rough day, but we got it done.
A life well lived, that's for sure.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, PK.
The NBA Finals, is it all over? Is it all done? Is it a foregone conclusion now at this point? The Celtics are going to take down the Mavs. Or there's a way Dallas turns this around.
No, I think looking at the two teams, and I'm sure you guys, think the same thing, Boston's just a better team overall. Dallas is going to have to play a perfect game, and Boston's going to be have an off night. And Boston had an off night last night. That wasn't a great night for them. And yet they still came out with a win, and I think those are, you're up 2-0. I predicted 5 before it started. I don't know if they'll get to 5. I think they could close it out in Dallas, but just too many weapons. I think Dallas let them off the hook a little bit last night when they were playing 40. Doncic with 8 turnovers. He had a good game. He was efficient, shooting the ball, 12 for 21, and he had, I think, 11 rebounds, 11 assists. But the 8 turnovers and the 4 missed free throws for him were costly, and then you get, I think the bench, Dallas goes to their bench and they just don't get much, especially when they're taking away any lobs to Lively and all the things they were getting in all the other series. You get outscored. I think Porzingis had 12 and outscored their bench, which had 9. So those are, it was a good game. I thought they battled, they played hard, but Boston's just, Tatum didn't have a good night, and who steps up is Holiday, And I think the unsung hero with them is Derek White. I think he does so much for them that is just overlooked. but he's played extremely well all year, and he's been great throughout the playoffs.
Going back to his college days, I've actually just been in love with the way Jrue Holiday plays. You know, he calls himself a utility player, and I think he's more than that. But the guy is just whatever it takes to win. You've been there. How much do guys like to play with guys like that?
Well, those are the guys that everybody wants to be around, you know, because you watch him play, and there are nights he has 7 points. There's nights he's got 6 and, you know, doesn't take a lot of shots because he's just doing what his team needs. He's reading the game, and he does it very well, you know, and I've watched a lot of him, but he's got to be one of the strongest guys in the league because he'll post up 7-footers. He'll back him down and score over him with a little left-hand hook or things like that, and he's just got to be so physically strong because he's not very tall. But, you know, last night he was probably the most efficient player on the floor. You know, 11 for 14, and he had 11 rebounds.
Yeah.
But he got a lot of buckets because I think Tatum, who was shooting so poorly, you know, turned into a facilitator. You know, he had 12 assists, which I think that's not one of his strengths. And a few of those were to Holiday with making some good cuts when he was in traffic and getting doubled. But you're right. I think Holiday is. I think around the league, everybody knows how important he is. But I think for an average fan, you just think he's an okay player, you know. But now you just signed a new contract for $126 million. So, I mean, the people in the league know what he brings to the table.
2 games is a very small snapshot, but I think whatever chance Dallas had, I think Maverick fans had to hold on to the fact, well, our stars are more likely to deliver in the clutch than their stars. The question was, would Dallas get the game to that clutch moment in the final 5 minutes, the final 2, maybe the final possession? Because you think Luka and Kyrie are going to come through in those moments. You don't know if Tatum will. Tatum's not shooting it well at all. But Dallas isn't taking advantage of it. 17 points on 31% shooting. That's the kind of number Maverick fans wanted to think the door will be open for us, but they can't walk through it. And partly, you know, Porzingis had an awesome game. Holiday had an awesome game. So they have guys turning in dominant performances. They're just ham and egging it a little bit.
Well, I think your superstars, you know, are when you're looking at Tatum and Brown. Those are the 2 guys you expect to carry your team. You know, and Brown last night was good. You know, 21 points. He did have 6 turnovers, but he was solid. You know, 8 for 15. That's a good night. But Tatum was the one that, man, you don't take advantage of a 6 for 22 night, and he plays 45 minutes. It's not like the coach is going to sit him. And you expect him to start making shots, but he never did. But he found a way to do everything else. You know, 9 rebounds, 12 assists. You know, only turned it over 3 times in 45 minutes with the ball in his hands a lot of the time. And I think those are things that Dallas fans have to look at and go, how do we get a win? You know, if Washington scores on the breakaway where White got to him, and I think he got pushed, you know, possible foul. I'm going to say probable foul. After I watched it a couple of times, P.J. Washington's a good athlete, and he never got above the rim. That ball hit the front of the iron, and I think he got pushed so, you know, harder than it looked because his momentum took him forward and he couldn't get above the rim. And obviously Derek White got a hand on it, but he wasn't going to get above the rim anyway because of the push in the back. Probably should have been called a foul, and they should have been shooting free throws to cut it to 3? 1 possession game. I think it was a 5-point game at that time.
Yeah. So
those are tough, and you go back and look at a game and find those calls all throughout the game. That one just stands out because it happened in the last 30 seconds. But that's what you're talking about right there, DJ. Get it to a 1-possession game and hope Kyrie and Luka can find a way to pull it out for you. But they never got to that point, and that's. But I think Dallas is just too deep. Their starters are just.
You mean Boston?
I mean Boston. Yeah, Boston's just too deep. Their guys are just. You know, you don't know who's going to beat you. One night it could be Derek White who goes for 30.
Absolutely.
You know, because he's capable of that. He's shown it all year. And you're looking at Brown, you're looking at Tatum, you got Holiday, you got Porzingis coming off the bench, and then all of a sudden, you know, Horford hits a couple of clutch threes, or White gets 2 blocks and hits a couple of threes and turns the game, and you're like, how do we beat these guys? And I don't think Dallas has the weapons to beat them. I just don't think they can do it. Defensively, Boston's too good. They can switch. They can guard multiple positions. They're just better than Dallas, and that's just, you know, Dallas put up a good fight last night, but I don't think they can beat Boston.
Draft's coming up later this month. Have you had an opportunity to see Zach Edey, 2-time Wooden Player of the Year, play? And if you have, what do you think of his NBA prospects?
I like him. The only issue with Zach Edey is the NBA's kind of gotten away from that dominant post guy where that's where he is. He's got to be a post guy, and he'll step out and shoot it once in a while, and he'd have to work on that, and I'm sure he can. He looks like he's got a pretty good shot. His free throws aren't bad. His shot doesn't look horrible. But the game's gotten so fast and up and down, his size it'll be tough. But I think he's going to make a team, and he's going to get an opportunity to show what he can do. And I think he can be successful. I'm just not sure. I don't know how high somebody takes him, what the risk is. I'm sure they've done all the analytics on him, but who does he compare to right now in the NBA?
Steven Adams, Zubac with the Clippers. I mean, there's a few big guys out there.
Yeah. And Steven Adams is, that's a big body, and he's he's not a shooter either. So there's a couple of guys, but there are very few and far between that are, going in the low post all the time and taking up space, because right now the NBA is spread, drive and kick. You hear the coach from Boston, Mizzou, is talking about, hey, spread the floor, don't hit a home run on the first drive. We'll get it on the second or third drive, because sooner or later we're going to get a breakdown and we're going to beat somebody and get a layup, or we're going to get a wide open three on a kick out. And with Edey in the game, there's not many pick and pops. He's going to be a role guy. But he's a better offensive player than Gobert. And I don't know if he might be, who knows what his shot blocking ability is. I mean, you're that tall, you got to be decent at doing that. So, he's going to get an opportunity, and that's all the kid wants. Give me an opportunity to show you if I can play in this league or not. And he's going to get that, because I think he'll be a first rounder.
Of the foreign players in this draft, how many of them, given the fact that your son Nico is playing in Italy, then you watch basketball in Europe, how many of them do you know about? Have you heard about? Do you have an idea about?
I don't. Those guys I don't really know. I haven't seen them. Nico said they're all decent. He's surprised they're going that high, but with what you've heard about the draft this year, about being really a weak draft. Those guys I don't know much about. I haven't seen them that much. Nico didn't play this year. Nico wasn't in the Euro Cup or Euro League, so I didn't see a lot of those guys, because a lot of those guys were playing those games, and he was playing in an Italian team that wasn't in the Euro League. So it was different to watch for me, and I wasn't really paying attention once he wasn't playing in that. So I can't help you there, DJ. Now you're on your own.
I'm a little disappointed in you.
I know, because the Europe market I'm usually pretty good with. But
you are,
I wasn't really paying much attention, and those guys, to be honest, I didn't even know the names. Not even the fact that I'd seen them and knew a little bit about them. I hadn't even heard about these guys. So, they're obviously younger guys, and you see some of these guys get drafted, and their stats aren't very good over here because they don't play a lot. They're drafting on just what they will be able to do, or what they hope they'll be able to do, and what they're going to grow into. So it was a little different, and I didn't get a chance to see those guys. Nico's seen them, but we haven't really talked about him much. So I don't know, and I'm sure he'll see some of these guys coming up in the qualifiers and some of these games he's got to play in over in Puerto Rico here in a couple weeks, 3 weeks.
What's fascinating to me is the number of avenues now in which players come to the NBA. It's so drastically different than it used to be, right? In your day, you play in the colleges and get your name out there, and away you go and see what happens. Now, any number of different ways, and I want to get your thought on this BYU kid, Agor Denham, right? He's 6'9", out of Russia, and he's supposed to be a potential lottery pick in the 25 draft, and so he was playing over there in Spain, right, with one of the teams. Well, now he's deciding that he's going to come over here, and BYU is going to, obviously they're in the Big 12, and he's going to be coached by this Kevin Young, who has NBA experience and all that stuff. What do you think of all that as far as the decision that was made in terms of, because everybody wants to play in the NBA, right? And he's thinking that come over here, get acclimated, and then go. So I wanted your opinion on the method that this individual is choosing versus all the other different methods that other players have chosen to go about furthering their career with the goal of the NBA.
Well, I think it's an interesting decision, for a guy that, he's playing in Spain. And what people here don't understand is the basketball in Europe. And if you talk to anybody in the NBA, they'll tell you it's the hardest basketball on the planet. It's just more physical. It's no space. You play college rules. So you're getting out of the spacing that you have here in the NBA. And it's to score. They want the open floor. They want dunks. They want fast pace. They want the fans to love it. Over there, they don't care about that. They're happy with a game that ends 52-50, and it's a battle and it's a defensive struggle and all those things. For this kid to make a decision to leave what's going on over there and come to college tells me he wants to get in a system where he's going to play 30 to 35 minutes a game because he's probably not getting that over there because of his age. And he's going to come here and get an NBA coach. You're still going to have to deal with no spacing, or very little spacing like you have over in Europe, but less contact. But I think he's more visible here. He'll have more eyes on him all the time. And I think that's a good decision for him, to come here and play. And like you say, you get used to being in the United States and the culture and everything you're going to deal with if you come to the NBA. Now it's going to be a little different because you're going to be in Provo.
Oh, I got you.
We were all waiting for that. We're looking at each other like
we would keep it above board here.
This is a serious take from Pace. What's wrong with him?
I got to poke him a little bit. I can't just let that one go. but it's he's in Provo. He'll be sheltered. He'll be taken care of, but he'll get to see what it's like to be here, and I think that's a plus for him. And so I think it's a good decision for him. And I think the new coach, NBA style, and all the NBA contacts he has, so he'll be talking about his kid because obviously it looks good on his resume to get a kid that's one and done and get him to go.
Yeah. Maybe
you can get some more. Those things are just positive. And I think the fact that they were able to land him is amazing. So kudos to them.
Almost as amazing as you not tracking European teenage basketball stars and not taking shots at Provo. I mean, seriously,
I almost let that one slip. Didn't I? That was my bad.
The world is upside down here. And while you talk about BYU and use the word amazing, which also amazes me, do you see any momentum around your Utes? Have you heard anything? Is there I've heard from plenty of ex-alumni about how upset. Well, from plenty of alumni about how upset all the alumni are. Some are more vocal and more out there with the media than others. Everybody's waiting for that to turn around and get back to the way it was when I played, whatever decade that was. Do you have any immediate hopes for that? Any optimism?
I do. I like the coach. I like Coach Smith. I think he does a good job. I think I've been to his practices. I've sat and talked with him, and I think he's on the right track. I think in this day and age to recruit with all the NIL deals, with the money, I just think it's so hard for these programs to do it. And they're just going to have to find a way to be better at it. And get guys or get a booster to step up or get somebody to step up and find a way to pay some guys to get them here because it's just getting one or two superstars to buy in that turns your 1 year around and puts eyes on your program and starts bringing other recruits. So I have a lot of faith in them. I think they'll get it turned around and they'll get the ship righted. But, when I can't tell you. It's always it's tough to predict. Like PK was saying, 100 years ago when I played, we didn't have all the transfer rules. We didn't have all that stuff. Guys stayed at their school most of the time because if you left, you had to sit. There were just so many reasons that you stayed, and you built foundations of a team, and you could see the 4-year foundation. I mean, when I came into Utah, there was, Chambers, Vrains, Bankowski, Scotty Martin, Donnie Rice that were all going to be juniors or a senior. So you had that 2 years with these guys that were really good. Hopefully the group that I came in with was going to be really good, and they just built around that and kept going. And I think that's what we did for the 4 years I was there, and Pim was very good at that. BYU did the same thing during the Ainge era, Ainge and Kite and Roberts and all the guys they had. And now you can't do that. Now you're a free agent. After every season ends, I'm looking at where can I get paid now? Yeah. And it seems like guys are playing 7-8 years. I mean, I see names that I'm going, this kid came out of high school with my son, who's now at his he's played a year at college and 4 years as a pro, and this kid's still in college. What are we doing? I mean, seriously, what are we doing? The kid's got it, but it takes away the advantage that BYU's always had. Now the age gap is a lot different.
Right.
You know, they go on a mission and come back and they're older. Well, now you're playing against guys your own age or even older because they've been in college for 6 years.
Yeah.
So to me, that stuff that drives me crazy. But I get it with the COVID year and the injuries and guys staying around. I mean, how long has Cam Rising at the U been in college?
he came out in 17.
Have you seen?
and he'll be. And they said he could get an extra year after this one. Somebody told me, and I'm like, come on.
Have you seen someone on social media went to Photoshop and they gave him a receding hairline and grayed his long hair and put that out there? He's kind of going bald down the middle a little bit.
He looked like a member of the Doobie Brothers.
Yeah.
But, hey, the guy, he's a genius. I'm going to stay here as long as I can. I'm making, $1 million, $1.5 million?
Yeah.
I'm going to stay in college because who knows if I'm going to be a pro.
Right.
I might as well get paid now.
I agree.
Those
are the rules. He didn't make them.
I'm not mad at him. Those are the rules.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to play by what you give me, and that's what you're giving me. So I'm going to be smart about it and make as much as I can while I'm here.
Precisely. I mean, we would all do the same. So who's to criticize? Yeah. It's funny. It's ridiculous. It's all sorts of stuff. I had a college coach who used to coach in this community. I was exchanging some communication with him just yesterday, actually, and I'll read you. I have to clean it up.
From your side, I'm sure.
The FCC is still a thing, it turns out, so he's going to clean it up.
The BS transfer portal and NIL crap. College basketball is a bleep show right now, and it's only going to get worse. Not fun anymore. What do you think about that?
I agree. I agree 100%. If you're going to allow kids to make a decision on, I'm going to have a good year at Utah. I'll use it. Look at Lamont Butler from San Diego State.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Had a good career at San Diego State. Went into the draft last year, pulled himself out. Went into the draft this year, pulled himself out. Now he's going to go to Kentucky. And this will be his 5th year of college. And it's his COVID year, which is great. And he's a great kid. I know him personally. I know his family. He played in the same program as Nico did growing up with the West Coast Elite. So I know him very well, and I'm happy for him. But it shouldn't be allowed for all these guys just to go, I'm going to go where the money is. I'm just going to get paid because I can. I don't care about my loyalty to my school, to my coach, to my teammates. Right now, it's just what the NBA is. I'm going to go get what I can get while I can. And it's not the kid's fault. I'm not blaming Butler or any other kid that transfers to go get paid. It's the system that has allowed this now. And if they don't find a way to put a cap on it and put some rules around it, it's going to be really bad in the future because it's just going to continue to happen and people are going to stop. I would stop going to games because you never know who you're going to see. You never know who you're going to get to watch anymore. How do I cheer for my team when I got new players every single year?
Yeah, totally. You look at Smith at Utah, man. Craig Smith gives him the ball. He puts up a bunch of triple doubles, and now he's gone.
Well, those are the things that are going to happen in every college around the country, and it's happening every day. But it's just where guys have the money.
Right.
I mean, Calipari went to his new job and gets $6 million. They tell him he's got an NIL money to go get players.
Yeah.
You go pay who you want. I mean, you go give a kid $1 million or $2 million to get a superstar from any school you want because they're going to come for that money.
Right.
Because nobody else can pay it, or very few can pay it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I wish I was playing college basketball right now.
Maybe
do you have any eligibility?
Maybe Sidney Moncrief is walking through that door, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, if I had eligibility, hey, do I get a COVID year? I'll come back.
when I was Pace Mannion joining us, former Ute, former Jazz player, when I was sitting on the set doing the Jazz pre-half and post with you and Thurl for 5 years, Kirilenko got a big contract, and Okura got a big contract, and Boozer and D. Will, and you guys more than once laugh about all the teammates who've said, man, I was born too early. I was just born too early. I can remember some of those conversations, and I'm just wondering if Nico, who was in the 2nd grade then, playing on that little hoop off to our left, if he sits around like last week when you're with him in Arizona and goes, I was born too early, Dad. I could have really made some money at Arizona.
Well, he says it. He's 21, 22?
Well, he's just like 3 or 4 years. Everything's changed.
All he had to do was, go to high school one more year because he wanted to leave early.
Yeah.
And stay at Arizona for a year or two, and he'd have been right in the middle of all that money.
Nice.
You know?
Born too
So
young.
I can always turn it back and say, it's your fault. It's all your fault. You were just in a hurry to get everything done. So
Yeah, there you go.
Well, he's not hurting in Italy, so.
No. He's done well. He's done really well, and I'm proud of him. So I got no complaints. I'm looking forward to watching him play in Puerto Rico here in a few weeks.
Where's that going to be on TV? Are we going to be able to watch that, or is it streaming somewhere? Do you know? It's an Olympic last chance qualifier, right?
Probably not that bracket because it's going to be, and they probably won't show anything because USA doesn't have to qualify, but they've got to go into Puerto Rico, and they're in the bracket with Puerto Rico and Bahrain, and then the other bracket is the only team I remember in the other bracket is Lithuania, and I'm assuming Italy's not going to be as strong this year because everybody here knows Fontecchio, and he's out. He had surgery on his foot, so he won't be playing. So Gallinari will play. But Fontecchio's out, and that hurts us because he's our leading scorer. He's a big part of that offensive group. So there's going to be some shots out there.
Take them
for somebody.
Well, we know who.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I told Nico. Hey, don't be bashful, dude.
FGAs.
Nico for 40.
Universal language.
But it'll be fun. It's always nobody thought they could beat Serbia 4 or 5 years ago when they beat them to get to the Olympics. So it'll be interesting. They have Sabonis. He'll be playing, and I don't know if Marshall Lewis is going to play because he's in a contract negotiation. So hopefully they'll get that done before the qualifiers, and he doesn't show up.
Well, Pace, we appreciate it as always. Thanks for checking in, and we will talk to you again. When we come back, what is trending? The headlines are next.
It's time to get your morning started with the news you need to know.
News update.
This is what's trending with DJ and PK. Hashtag NBA.
Jason makes greatness look easy. He does it in a lot of different ways. He does it on defense. He does it on rebounding. Does it on passing. Does it on screening. He's a tremendous player. It's hard to coach him, and he has the ability to affect the game in different ways. We're a different team, but it takes everybody to do it.
I've been here before, and we didn't win, and it's just like, we're so close to what we're trying to accomplish. Why would I let my ego or feel my need to score all the points get in the way of that?
The Boston Celtics on an off day. Joe Mazzulla and Jason Tatum making greatness look easy. And Tatum focused on winning, not ego. So he hasn't shot the ball well. So what? It's 2-0 Celtics. They're halfway through the finals.
That's all that matters, whether you need Jason Tatum instead of screen, move the ball, pass the ball, shoot the ball, play defense, show on the screen, flash to the post. He can do it all. It's not really any of his concern that he's not making baskets. I think we're fine, Man, he said all that without taking a breath.
Well, a little sugar, a little caffeine can get you hopped up. Maybe just adrenaline.
Maybe God.
Maybe.
You always underestimate that.
I do. Kristaps Porzingis said he believes the plan is for him to get imaging on his right leg after he appeared to tweak it late in the game to victory. Still expects to continue playing. Wants to be out there as they win the title. Dan Hurley, no go. No thanks. Thanks, but no thanks. 6 years, $70 million the Lakers offer him, but he is going to stay at UConn, see if they can win a third consecutive NCAA title.
Well, it takes a special Jersey guy to be able to make it Southern California. Not all of them can do it.
Some of them have to stay in the Northeast where they belong. Others can venture out into the wide world that doesn't understand them, and yet they can conquer anyway.
Yeah.
Have any examples in mind?
Me.
The Daily Breeze. You're so awesome, they had to tear the place down. Greatness will never walk through that door again. Let's just be done with it.
If I'm the Lakers, there's only one person I go after.
And that would be?
Caitlin Clark.
Tie all the basketball storylines together.
Yeah.
There it is.
You make Adam Silver happy.
You have heard who they might be going.
Make the WNBA happy.
When we were...
they want her out.
We were at a golf tournament, and the news had broken. I said, so you think they're going back to J.J. Redick? And you said...
J.J. Wright.
J. Wright. Just one J.
How do you know what his middle name might be? Joseph.
He goes by J. Wright. Why Why would he come out of retirement to take over an NBA team that's capped out and stuck in the middle? 6 years, $70 million?
Well, some people like challenges, and they want to test themselves against the greatest. I mean, there's a whole number of reasons. I mean, you're only going to go because it's a wide-open job that has a clear path to the title. I mean, if that's the case, who's taking jobs? How many of those jobs are available? Only Phil Jackson does that.
Darvin Ham, who used to coach the Lakers, will be joining Doc Rivers' staff in Milwaukee as a top assistant.
Senior assistant. Got senior writers, senior assistant.
Senior writer, senior assistant.
Mike Hopkins joining Mike Budenholzer in Phoenix. Old Washington coach. Man, it's over now. Why would he take that? The team's capped out. Answer, don't quit bobbing your head like you're a freaking doll.
He needs the money.
No, he needs the money. These guys are all
They're all rolling. He's not ready to retire yet. Jay Wright, for whatever reason, was ready to ride off into the sunset.
Well, I think he saw what was coming in the sport.
Like Randy Ray, didn't want any part of it. You guys deal with this.
Yeah.
I'm out. I'll do a little TV over here and call it good. Nikola Jokic included on Serbia's 16-man preliminary roster for the upcoming Paris Olympics, quieting doubts that he would skip the tournament. The three-time NBA MVP has missed some important international tournaments in the past, citing long NBA seasons, but it looks like he might be playing in Paris.
Well, because he doesn't have to play in them. He can show up 5 minutes before.
We'll take you.
Yes.
DJ and PK.
Hashtag college basketball.
10 players from NC State's 1983 national championship team have sued the NCAA and the collegiate licensing company, seeking compensation for unauthorized use of their name, image, and likeness. The lawsuit says for more than 40 years, the NCAA and its co-conspirators have systematically and intentionally misappropriated the Cardiac Pack's publicity rights, including their name, image, and likeness associated with that game and that play, reaping scores of millions of dollars from the Cardiac Pack's legendary victory.
I'm going to hit Thurl up for a loan if they win.
Thurl has been reached out to for comment, but so far no response.
Oh, I'm sure a bunch of people have reached out for him.
I bet. DJ and PK.
Hashtag NFL.
Got all the way to the end. We're right there and weren't able to finish it. So for me, like I had that taste in my mouth, and get back into the gym, start slowly working into it, and then here in OTAs, getting with Kyle and going over all the games that we played in, every play, and going over situational football and stuff, and taking that and actually going out in the field and running things and repping things and throwing to receivers. So last year I didn't have that. So now that I'm able to attack those kinds of things, I feel like I've gotten better.
Brock Purdy talking about his offseason. He's not rehabbing an injury this offseason. It's all about progressing and getting better.
All about that base.
The Niners have been so close, but that sixth Super Bowl trophy, the Vince Lombardi trophy, has eluded them. Maybe this offseason work will end up being the difference. Mike Tomlin got a contract extension. The Steelers gave him 3 more years. He signed through the 2027 season. A little controversy on Pittsburgh. There are people complaining because they haven't won a playoff game since before the pandemic. They want more success.
You're a Tim Benz guy. That's people.
He's not the only one.
Who else?
I don't know their names. But this isn't the first time I have seen this, and it wasn't Tim before. DJ and PK.
Hashtag Major League Baseball.
Here's the stretch and the 2-0 on the way to Cal Raleigh. Swinging a well-hit ball deep to right field. Going. Graham, get out the right bread and mustard. It is grand salami time. A walk-off grand slam for Cal Raleigh. And the Mariners win it. They win it 8-4 in an amazing comeback here in the bottom of the 9th inning.
And McCann slams this to left field, and that baby's gone. And this game is tied at 2.
1-1. Estes delivers. Hit in the air to right. Deep. Cameron twisting around. Looking up. This one. Gonna go! Off the top of the wall in right and shooting up over the home run deck.
Highlights from Major League Baseball. The Mariners walk it off 8-4 thanks to the Grand Slam. They beat the White Sox, but it's the White Sox. Of course they did. The Padres beat the Athletics 6-1. Well, it's the Athletics. Of course they did. And the Twins shut out the Rockies 5-0. Yeah, of course they did. Bees back into action. They are playing the Aviators in Las Vegas, 8:05 first pitch tonight. Tony Parks will be on the air at 7:50 with the pregame show here on The Zone.
#NHL.
Panthers, Lundell, left side, drop pass, shot, and they scored! It's Nico Mikla! He let it rip, and this game is tied! Nico Mikla, drive out of the high slot. Now it's Oposo on the right side. Around the end boards, Evan Rodriguez here in the near circle. Looked to play it on net, couldn't get through. Another try, shot, he scores! Evan Rodriguez let it rip, and he beats Skinner short side. The Panthers have their first lead of the night. It's 2-1. What a laser of a wrist shot that was! Ekman Larson straight on Rodriguez to Lundell. Anton Lundell near side. Lets it rip, tipped, and they score! Evan Rodriguez got a stick on it, and the Panthers make him pay. It's 3-1. 7:34 to go in the third. Evan Rodriguez has 2.
Evan Rodriguez with the big goals. It was 1-1 going to the third. The Panthers score 3 times. They win 4-1. They lead the series 2-0. And teams that lead the Stanley Cup Final 2-0 are 49-5. So it's not over yet, but the Panthers can see the Stanley Cup from where they're standing.
Do you know that there's never been a player to win the Stanley Cup on the team named Evan?
I did not.
And both teams have guys named
Evan. So the first Evan ever is about to win the Stanley Cup, no matter how this plays out.
Yeah. That's crazy. We were talking about it last night on the broadcast.
Game 3 Thursday, it's switching to Edmonton. I clicked on a story after it was all over as I began to educate myself about hockey. Turned out I was clicking on a story from Edmonton, and PK, the amount of complaining about the refereeing, the officiating was spectacular. All the penalties that weren't called that could have changed the game, all the no calls. So some things are consistent across all sports.
Well, there was a lot of physicality in that ball game. Maybe dirty hits.
A lot of slashing. A lot of complaints about that.
Knee on knee.
What is Trending is brought to you by Shamrock Plumbing. There's no job too big or too small. Get the personal touch with Shamrock Plumbing. Steve Cleveland, former BYU basketball coach, is going to be here to talk NBA Finals at 8 o'clock. We got an U.S. Open update with Brian Taylor at 8:30. And David Dwork, Panthers writer, covering the Florida Panthers for Hockey News, is going to join us in the 9 o'clock hour. Plus, we're also looking for UNA Golf qualifiers all morning long. Stick around. The question of the day is coming up next.
When it comes to the biggest moments in Utah sports history, these guys have seen it all. This is DJ and PK. DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Question of the morning up on our Facebook page. The Lakers have swung and missed. What does it say that Dan Hurley turned them down? Scott says, it says he has eyes. Anyone could see the problem with the Lakers.
What's the problem?
He does not spell out the problem. Could be capped out team. Could be he doesn't have the right personality to coach in the pros.
Well, then why did he consider it? He apparently strongly consider it.
Good to have all your options. And you consider all your options. Maybe he wanted more control than he was going to get in L.A. I guess there could be any myriad of things until we hear him say or somebody close to him gives him up. I don't know. You got a gut instinct on what it was on the long list of reasons that people turn down coaching jobs?
He's an East Coast guy. He doesn't want to move all the way out there. His wife doesn't want to move out there. She's a Jersey lady. Jersey girls. Let me tell you, I know about Jersey girls.
You got 2 sisters.
Yeah.
Had a ma.
Ma.
I got
more
probably
than that.
aunts and uncles and cousins.
A couple exes. A lot of them moved to Texas.
Nice. And they weren't happy, and they moved back to Jersey. So you learned.
She barely wanted to move up the freeway, up I-95.
Brian says it's not the Lakers' fault. He just wanted to stay at UConn. The Lakers and LA people thinking it's all about the Lakers. It was about UConn.
The idea of this capped out stuff, all that's just temporary. The Jazz were capped out until they weren't.
Right. They know it's true, and they gave him a 6-year deal. So you're not going to be capped out for 6 years.
You could be capped out today and not be tomorrow.
Ryan says that having players involved in front office choices are not what any coach ever wants to deal with.
Yeah, but I think that's, to a degree, every situation. I even think it gets down into colleges. How's that unusual?
Players having opinions on who ought to be on the team? Of course they have opinions. It's just a question of how much say they have in any situation.
Right.
There are plenty, even at the college level, there are plenty of examples of coaches taking a player to get a teammate. Player A, yeah, we'll take you, and you're okay, and that's fine. But really, we think now we have a better shot at getting player B.
Okay, so what does that mean?
Players still impact who's on the roster, even at the college level. I mean, they don't have the same amount of pull probably as some 10-year NBA player who's, won a title. I mean, in the case of LeBron, won 4. But just going generic across the NBA. The veteran who's the linchpin of the team has a little more say.
Of course. You don't think that they have says as far as trades go? They have way more say in that situation. You don't think the statues were consulted on every single deal?
They were. They were asked about that. They said they were.
Right. So I don't understand how that's unusual here.
They weren't always listened to. When Amici came to town, John Amici, at the press conference, Stockton said, I think he got signed because he had a good game against us. It didn't sound like John was in favor of that signing.
Well, they were listened to doesn't mean that their advice or counsel was followed.
Dan says, why didn't he take the Laker job? 2 words. Dumpster fire. Dumpster fire is a little strong since they were in the Western Conference Finals just a year ago.
Oh, okay, well, that's last year.
Yeah. Now it's 2 years ago.
Right. I mean, it's
dumpster fire. I think you have to be down further.
Last year.
Right. You have to be down further for longer to be a dumpster fire. That's too.
But they're the most glamorous franchise in all of the NBA. That's what the Los Angeles Times said.
Was that Plaschke?
He is the Los Angeles Times.
You wouldn't quote it if it weren't Plaschke. None of these other mere mortals.
Yes. Another guy who will be 70 years old and still doing it. Are they the most glamorous franchise? Because I read that. I seen that. Or those times come and gone. I ask you.
Well, they are still glamorous, and they still have LeBron, but they have not won at the clip they used to win at now for a solid 10 going on 15 years.
This is an opinion-based question, not a fact-based question.
To me, no, but to somebody living in L.A., yes.
Oh. How about no way in hell? Are you going to shrivel up and die if you don't appease both sides?
I don't think no way in hell is the true answer.
I know, but doesn't it feel fun to actually come down on a side?
I did.
Wait, well, those people over here, I can see their opinion, and those people over there, I can see their opinion. Everybody get together, and let's be happy.
There aren't two
sides. Straw to juice and a Twinkie for you, too.
There aren't two sides. There's more than two, and I've come down on one that really, really, really annoys you.
You really, really, really annoy me. Not the sides that you come down on. I mean, come on. Is this who they are? Are they holding on to something that is long gone?
Yes. Jerry Buss had a touch. I mean, I don't know how he did it, but he had it figured out.
And he wasn't asking for much.
And the kids don't seem to have the touch. There's been too much struggling since Jerry passed.
What's too much struggling? The
missing the playoffs
the Jazz have
8
never
times
had
in
the
10
touch.
years.
Then the Jazz have missed the playoffs now 2 years. It's probably going to be 3. And before that, they missed the playoffs.
Since they had the massive run when the statues were there, they're basically as likely to go to the lottery as they are to go to the second round. The winning is not what it was.
So
there's no
really,
question.
the Buss children have just come back to the norm because they didn't have Magic.
West, Chamberlain, Magic, Kareem, Shaq, Kobe.
Well, they had them, though. But wasn't Jerry dead by then?
Jerry was around for Shaq and Kobe.
Was he?
I don't know what his level of involvement was for the last two with Kobe and Gasol. That I'd have to look that up. But he was definitely around for.
Okay.
He was there for the Shaq trade because there's a pickup game or whatever, and Shaq dunked and he ran back up court and he turned and yelled at Jerry Buss, "Give me my money!" And shortly after that, he was traded to Miami.
So we can crack on them, but really isn't that they're just like everybody else now, and before they weren't?
Yes, I think that's
why
an
crack
excellent
on
point.
them? If you're going to crack on them, then you got to crack on the Jazz.
Well, because I don't think that the rest of the fan bases don't walk around thinking that they're the most glamorous team in the league. I mean, that's the difference between the Lakers being the most glamorous team in the league and that being earned, and now them still having a certain amount of glamour that is residual because they were great for decades and they're in a city that has a lot of people.
That's the last part is the reason why they're the most glamorous.
City that has a lot of people?
No. That it's a glamorous Hollywood celebrity, look at me type of people. Not that I mean, if I wanted to go to have the most types of the most amount of people considered glamorous, move a franchise to Mexico City then. I mean, it's Hollywood. It's all the stuff that goes into it. It's the weather. It's blah, blah, blah.
No, I think it's a little bit of the people, although New York has the whole, they got plenty of showbiz in New York. So they put Spike Lee courtside, and it's glamour, and they don't have anywhere near the victory.
Over here. I mean, it's nothing like over here. Yeah, and the franchise wasn't all that until friggin' Magic got there. It was nice. It was a good franchise that had won one title.
Yep, come up short a bunch.
Back in Minnesota days.
Right. No, but in L.A. it had won one title.
Right. And once Magic got there,
5 titles and 9 trips to the finals in 12 years.
And it wasn't just
what a ride.
It wasn't just the winning; it's the way they won.
Showtime.
Who was the quarterback of Showtime? Who engineered it? Who was the architect?
Irvin.
Right.
Buck Magic Johnson.
Right. And they the fates conspired to allow them to have the pick, number 1, when he was coming out. That's some serious good fortune right there.
Yeah. But they made the most of their good fortune.
Absolutely. And Buss had the ability to be an entertainer himself. The Laker girls and all the honeys. I used to go to the games and just stargaze. I would go in the Forum Club before the game at halftime.
Before luxury suites and hiding behind tinted windows and all that kind of stuff, he would sit at a table that was on a platform over one of the tunnels. Plain view of everybody. with whatever stars or would-be stars or models or would-be models he wanted to sit with at the table that night.
Right, and it was all about the glamour that he had the foresight to do, and he had the guy who was as charismatic as anybody who's ever played the game, on and off the floor. I mean, there's never been, ever, a microphone that Magic said no comment. It's just not who he is. Right?
Yep.
Especially then. This wide-eyed guy with $1 million smile and charm and all the stuff that he had going on. You talk about the best fit ever. There's never been a better fit, player to community, with ownership.
Never wore another jersey. He's a Laker through and through.
Yeah.
First day to the last day.
Yeah. And so I can see why they call themselves the most glamorous. Because for a good while, and Platschke is a 66, 67-year-old man.
No, he goes all the way back to Magic and Kareem, and then he was there and saw them reinvent themselves with Shaq and Kobe and do the three-peat.
And everybody there thinks they're the best in L.A. It's just the way it is.
It is the way it is.
I had an argument with a friend of mine who now works for the Orange County Register. He went to USC, and I was changing my cooler, going to winterize it in the first house that we lived in, and I suck at that stuff, and I hated doing it, and finally we gave it up while we moved and got in. This house had air conditioning put in. But so he calls me, and the Devils had just beaten SC, a controversial Brad Otten, the kid who played at Weber. Did he fumble? And they didn't have replay then, and it was in overtime, and they called it a fumble as he was trying to throw the ball versus an incomplete pass. And my buddy says, wow, the refs always favor the underdog. And I jumped him big time.
Because USC was the underdog. Yes. ASU was favored.
I believe that was the year that they went to the Rose Bowl.
You are driving me nuts.
So I'm screaming
you are
on the roof.
So entitled.
Right. Favored. He just assumed that they were favored. And that's the way it is there. But is it true now? I don't think it is anymore. The glitz and glamour and the celebrity and the silicone and all that stuff is all there. But what does the player want? Outside of Anthony Davis and LeBron, who has been demanding to go there?
The list has gotten shorter. For a while, they didn't have money because they paid Kobe and he tore his Achilles. But they've won 6 playoff series in 12 years. That's not a very good winning clip. And 4 of those they did in the bubble all at once when they won the title. So the best players are not
the way Whittingham looks at the COVID season.
Throw it out?
Yeah.
Only if you didn't win. If you didn't win, you throw it out. If you did win, well, everybody played and the rules were the same.
But it was unlike anything we've ever had. Someone had to win.
Yep. There was a lot of the bubble there, and then baseball did their bubble sort of in Texas, right? Did all neutral field games, no travel.
Right.
And the Dodgers won that, and LA had their year. We got another title, and another title. But it's definitely different, and no fans, no travel. Those are 2 pretty big elements. We've always heard about the impact they have.
Yeah.
I mean, the talent's still out there.
Especially in the NBA. I don't think baseball matters that much. I really don't, no matter where you play.
Get your starting pitcher in the zone.
I mean, the field essentially is the same. And the fans, I just don't think they make a difference. Not to the level that it can be in basketball. And so the travel.
Well, even if you count those series, 6 playoff series wins in 12 years is not an impressive number. And if you don't count them, then it's 2 and 12. And it's just worse. But the message is the same: is you're not dominating. You haven't dominated for a long time. Why do you think you're so special?
Which is why.
And Platschke gives voice to that frustration. Now, maybe part of the frustration is you got completely unrealistic idea of your place in the basketball universe.
But
in the first place.
That'll never change.
Never.
Not anybody who's born today. Living today, I should say. No. You'd have to go Jeannie and whoever else is involved in that family. They'd all have to be dead. Because this is all they know. You know what I mean? And if you got another generation in there, then maybe they would know stuff that is different and would think differently. But it doesn't look like that's going to be for a while. I mean, Jeannie Buss is only 62 years old.
There's a possibility she could be doing this for 20 more years.
Yeah. If she wanted to, right?
Yeah, right.
You would think.
They're certainly owners in their 80s. Across multiple sports.
And she's married to Jay Moore.
I did not know that.
You did not know that?
I did not know
that. Jay Moore farted on us?
I do remember that. That was a pretty odd morning. Jay Moore's manic energy in studio. We don't get a lot of in-studio guests.
Oh, we used to have the comedians back then, though. We had JJ, Jimmy, what's his face, Walker?
That was earlier.
I thought it was over the same place. Kelly Endo, when he was starting out, came on a bunch. Came in studio.
That's true. Yeah. Then he got really big, and we haven't seen him anymore.
Right. And he's 9 years younger, Jay Moore. Jeannie Buss is a cougar. And Jay Moore, as you know.
You guys got into a whole thing with Jay Moore about East Orange, West Orange.
Well, he's a Jersey guy.
And South Orange. Storange!
Yeah.
You're in there screaming, Storange!
Yeah. I mean, he went to a Verona High School, which is, they're right next to each other. So he knew about that. So she's set. She's got her marriage. She dumped Phil.
It's over.
And she went younger.
Yeah.
So she's set to be running the show here for at least 10 years.
You would think.
Yeah. So they're going to be of that mindset to go all the way, all the time. And if I'm a Laker fan, I like that. But I wonder how much they can recover from this.
From a coach telling them no?
Well, so public. Who tells the Lakers no?
Mike Krzyzewski, and they recovered from that.
Who'd they get?
They brought back Phil.
Yeah. I rest my case.
And they made the Gasol trade.
And they already had the Mamba on board in his prime. Still had many years to go. LeBron's a great player, but he's not in his prime. He's still a great player. Make no mistake about that. He's still a great player. He's setting the record for advanced greatness, unlike anything we've seen. But how do you sell this now? Is it a bad look? Can they recover from it? It might take a bit.
I don't know that this is what they have to recover from. They had an owner who had the touch, and they had a GM who hit the mark again and again. Now they also had a couple of players who leveraged their way there. And one who fell into their lap. Kareem leveraged his way there. Magic fell into their lap. They traded for a future.
Kobe leveraged his way there.
Kobe leveraged his way there. I hadn't gotten to that generation, right? Well, Shaq. The Shaq had to, West had to go recruit him. He was a free agent. West had to go recruit him, but he got him there. So if you get the right couple of players, so they get a couple of players now who are really good.
Yeah, but that's just my point.
Older, but
is that no one's clamoring to do that like they were.
But when these two are soaking up all the money. When these two aren't there, and I mean, LeBron isn't going to do this at 45, is he? Maybe he is. Maybe he's going Tom Brady on us. So when they have money...
He's a free agent right now.
When they have
Who's
money,
clamoring to go there? They don't have to resign this very day. He is a free agent. His agent said that. They owe him nothing. He's soaking up as much money on the Lakers as I am. That's $0.
But I think there's the assumption that he is going to stay there.
Well,
and so people aren't wasting their time on it.
Oh,
now,
right, that's your assumption.
Right.
You stand by that.
I do.
I stand by the facts. They owe him nothing. And there's no free agent that we've heard any buzz, I want to go there. Don't sign me because I'm going to play out my deal and go there.
Because right now they get so much money to sign the extension that guys are routinely signing the extension.
And they don't want to go there. And you're missing the obvious reason.
And that would be?
State taxes. May he rest in peace.
He's still alive. He hasn't died. As you know when you run into him. Where'd you run into him?
He came up and watched the Oregon game.
Oh, yeah, there was.
Because he has the house up in Promontory, so he's here a fair amount.
DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Kathy says he didn't take the job because the Laker front office is a joke. Plus, he wants to coach, not just do what LeBron says. But so there it is.
LeBron, somebody said that the second they get a coach, he's going to sign a 3-year deal. Can't remember where I heard that yesterday. And it sounded like it was more than just a flippant comment. It sounded like
but my assumption was just ridiculous, and now you just throw that out there.
You just took who I don't know said, and I don't know if he was serious, and you took it as fact. That's today's journalism at its finest.
Yeah.
Who's clamoring to go? Name me one guy.
Most of them don't hit free agency. They signed the extension. So, no, but I don't know they're not clamoring to go because, no, I think with the extension.
Yes.
DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone.
This is DJ and PK, Utah's highest rated sports radio morning show for over 20 years. Ridiculously good. Presented by Murdoch Hyundai, Utah's #1 Hyundai dealer for 16 years in a row on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The band of the day today is KC and the Sunshine Band, and it's brought to you by Live Nation. For all the live concerts and events in 2024, check out livenation.com. On this day, 1977, KC and the Sunshine Band got their 4th U.S. #1 when I'm Your Boogeyman went to the top of the charts 47 years ago today.
I'm Your Boogeyman?
There it is.
I'm Your Boogeyman.
Yes.
I once sang, that's the way I like it, with John Sally.
And what was the occasion for that debacle?
I don't remember if it was a playoff game when he was with the Lakers.
Right.
It was a regular season game, and so I'm over there working for the Watchdog, and I'm standing in the tunnel by the Laker locker room. That must have been my assignment. And they won a close game. I don't remember if it was a playoff or what. And he comes walking off. That's the way, And he looks at me, and I said, I like it.
And he laughed and kept going?
Yeah. And he was always media friendly.
Oh, he knew what he wanted to do after his career.
Yeah.
He's good at it.
Yeah.
Has he made enough money and gone away? Because in this media landscape, there's room for him.
I don't know. But he was out there for a good while, and he was always easy to talk to, and more so than easy, available to talk to. And if you needed something, he was
a go-to guy.
Yeah. And I just, when I heard that song here,
he enjoys the give and take. He likes to laugh.
I remember him walking off, and he wasn't playing much at that time. But he was a big man with experience, and those guys tend to hang around, especially then in that era. And so he was singing that song. all these years later, I still remember. I can still picture it in my mind, him walking through the tunnel and me just standing there.
That's the way. Turns, looks at you. I like it.
What the heck?
Yeah, sure.
We're all there to have a good time. I certainly have never taken it that seriously. Yeah, maybe he has.
What does it say that Dan Hurley turned down the Lakers? That is the question of the morning. Jason said he has a chance to cement his legacy in college basketball in a very short amount of time. He could be mentioned with John Wooden and Coach K, or he could coach the Lakers and be fired in the middle of his second season.
He makes $70 million.
Well, he's not going to take that home.
Yeah, but
think
okay.
of the state taxes.
Yeah, but you can still say you made $72 million. There was no legacy here that would be ruined. It's like Ty Detmer. Did Ty Detmer ruin his BYU legacy? No.
No, but it could be enhanced, couldn't it?
Yes.
I mean, a three-peat just isn't done in college basketball. It's rarely done in college sports. That's why Oklahoma winning four softball.
But you can't compare anything now to then. It's so dramatically different.
If that doesn't count.
This is a new era. It counts, but you can't compare it to Coach K and those guys and John Wooden. Because who's to say that going forward
we won't have more
years,
dynasties because you'll be able to rebuild and reload on the fly?
Yes. So everything historically in college sports starts now or started in the last couple of years. Because
the history may be rewritten quickly.
It's just so dramatically different.
Now that you can recruit off somebody else's roster.
Yeah. You had Nick Saban at the NFL draft. Wow, we wanted that guy. We offered that guy. And he said no. He just admitted it for tampering. Well, then SUU gets slapped. Right? And I've had coaches from Utah and BYU tell me to my face what the player was, who the player was, what school was after him, and how much they were going to pay him.
I believe you.
Yeah, and everybody believes me. Right?
This is college football, college basketball 2024.
Right. And 25, 26, 27, blah, blah, blah. So it's taking away nothing from what he's accomplished, but I don't think that it can compare. And if he went to L.A., and it was a Jerry Tarkanian situation who left before Thanksgiving, I think.
When he went to San Antonio. Yeah, Jerry gave the NBA a shot for about 17 games.
He could be another Pitino. Pitino is 71, 72 years old and still has a job.
St. John's, hello.
He could pick his place. And
there's no doubt about that.
Doesn't have scenes from an Italian restaurant and all the other crap that Pitino has had along the way.
If he did 2 years with the Lakers and it blew up, the list of SEC and Big Ten schools that are going to be collecting these massive checks that would come for him, there'd be no problem. It'd be like Saban leading the Dolphins. Yeah, the only job he could get was Alabama. How about that?
Well, but I don't think he had that cachet at that time.
But he had one college title. He didn't have two.
Right.
But he had the one at LSU. And he had built up Michigan State. But
he still got another. But Alabama wasn't what it was until he took over. It had been years.
Yeah, he had Bear Bryant back in the 60s.
I think Stallings had it going on a little bit.
He had it pretty good, but not to the Bear level and the Saban level. But to a level that many, many schools would fully embrace.
So I don't think Dan Hurley risked anything. He just didn't want to do it. He'd rather stay there. And I think a lot of it was due in the fact that this is where he's from. These are his people. His parents are getting older. Bronco quit New Mexico to come to Utah to be closer to his parents.
When the clock is ticking, you really feel it.
Yeah. Right. How much longer? I assume they're deceased now, his parents. I don't know. But so now he went back to New Mexico. But he openly said that. That's the number one reason why he wanted to take the job. He wanted to be by his parents as they were aging. And Bob Hurley Sr. and his mom, Dan's mom, they're aging, obviously. So he wanted to be there. I think this is embarrassing for the Lakers, but I think it says nothing relative to,
So why don't I think it's embarrassing for the Lakers? Because I just have such a lower expectation for the Lakers. I mean, I never thought it was done. I always thought it'd be hard to get him away. I don't think the Lakers are.
You disagree with Bill Plaschke?
Apparently. I know. There are people who find that out. I'm going to be in trouble, huh? I'm going to be struck by lightning.
You disagree with, not me, you.
Yeah.
I think it's embarrassing.
That they can't get their guy. Because they're the Lakers.
Right. You're the Lakers. You're supposed to be able to get anybody you want.
Set that aside. Didn't you always think it was going to be difficult to get him? When you heard it, you thought, okay, they're making a run at him, but you didn't think it was done last Friday, did you?
No.
That this is going to happen.
Well, if it was done, they would have said it was done.
Right. So you knew this could happen.
Oh, I didn't expect him to take it. This guy, he's a Jersey City guy. Those guys are
UConn's
grinders.
about as far away as he can get.
But, I mean, Jersey City's not Malibu here. And if he wanted that, he would. But he wants this. And you got to be there to understand why he wants this. He wants to be close enough to go. He's at a Billy Joel concert at Madison Square Garden. That's what he wants. That means something to people. You and I, we've moved around. And to me, I have a little bit of regret that I've moved around so much. Where is my home? Where's his home? We know exactly where it is. He's barely left. And if UConn was in Jersey City, he would take that job. I think those things matter. And good on him for doing it.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. When we come back, Steve Cleveland, former BYU basketball head coach. We'll talk with him about this decision by Dan Hurley. Steve is a Laker lifer. And the NBA Finals. That's next. Stay with us.
20 years and still going strong. Utah's #1 sports radio show for over 2 decades. You're listening to DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We're joined by Steve Cleveland, former BYU and Fresno State basketball coach. Steve, good morning.
Morning.
Steve is a guy who grew up in Fresno and played college basketball at UC Irvine for the Anteaters back in the Crawford Hall days before they had the glorious Brent Center. You have Laker history deep in your soul. And PK and I were just talking about, are they going to be what they were going to be again? They think they're all that. They can't believe they got turned down by this coach, but maybe they shouldn't have been surprised by that. I think since Jerry Buss passed away, the kids just don't have the magic touch. And maybe Jerry, good fortune. And they had the #1 pick the right year to get Magic. Are they going to be what they were again? Was Hurley right to turn them down? When you heard that, as a coach who thought about moving and sometimes did and sometimes didn't, what did you think as the whole Hurley thing played out?
I have watched that, and I think for me, you're going to make a like that where. Can you hear me, guys?
You did cut out. You're back.
We can hear you now, yeah.
I'm back. Okay. Sorry about that. It didn't surprise me. And I know the money was there, and I just don't think it's a real stable situation. And I think that obviously he could have made it more stable and might have been what it was. And I haven't really heard any real significant conversations that he's had about this other than that he's excited about going back and doing and finishing what he's doing. But that just seems to be I don't know what the crowd is that's hanging over the Lakers. I mean, Darvin Ham, he was a really solid coach, had good success, did the things that he was supposed to do. I'm just not sure who's really making the call here. Is this a LeBron James deal? I mean, I can't imagine him not wanting him to come in. But I just think, for me, it's just real unsettling. It's been really hard for me to be a Laker fan. Because I grew up, as you did mention. I grew up. I watched games. I'd lived down there. But I just feel like they don't have the stability and they don't have the leadership right now. They need to make some decisions, obviously. But I've just not liked the path that I've watched. And maybe maybe I'm completely wrong on this, but I just have not really felt comfortable being a Laker fan. Not so much how they played, but just how they approach things. And, we recognize all of the history there and all the championships and all the things that have happened. For the last 3 or 4 years, it's been disappointing to watch this team play. And I'm not pointing a finger at anybody, but to me, it starts with, the head of your organization, and you've got LeBron James there, who's had a significant say in how a lot of things have happened. But I'm just not comfortable. It didn't surprise me at all. I just, there's too many questions unanswered. I don't have the answers to them, but I've never really felt good like I did when I was younger. And it was just a winning attitude. And I just haven't seen that in a long time. I know they won a championship 3 or 4 years ago in the bubble, and it's not like I dislike the guys there. In fact, I like some of the younger players that have been brought on, but leadership-wise, there's just something missing, and it's been hard for me to be a fan, to be honest with you.
What do you think about the potential success of college guys going to the NBA? Because I'm trying to think of guys who've really been able to make that transition, and it seems like there's been some decent guys, but then it doesn't work, and they end up leaving, whatever it might be. Obviously, Patino is probably the highest profile guy, but there's been others too from that perspective. What do you think's going on there that has prevented that type of transition to be successful?
I think one is the money. The money is obviously available there, but there's just so much change, and I think that you go 1 or 2 years in the NBA and things go, you're gone. It isn't. They're really quick to make changes when things aren't happening the way they should happen. And I think the long-term security of being at a big-time college program where you have that and you're comfortable there, and it's just not the constant flux of, and listen, with all the big-time college programs, there's lots of media attention. There's a lot of scrutiny in the world we live in today. Everything is transparent. But in the NBA, for me, it just seems that it's in flux all the time. And it's kind of a situation where if you've got a great college thing going on, you've got a good staff, you've had long-term success. I just think there's a little more wisdom in how guys are handled at the collegiate level, and there's relationships, and everything in the NBA is driven by what have you done for me lately, and there just isn't the continuity that you have. Now, mind you, there's some great NBA coaches that have, forgotten more than I know. I mean, they're just great people in the NBA, but I just think for college coaches, there's always got to be a question mark. Is this really the best thing that I could do? And it's not to say that coach won't come back 3 or 4 or 5 years from now and, finishes at UConn and decides to take a swing at the NBA. But I just don't like the continuity, and just everybody is subject to scrutiny day in and day out, from social media to all the experts in the business that, the talking heads and all the things that are going on every day. There's just not a real feeling of security no matter what's going on. And change is what, professional sports are about. But the NBA especially, when you're only dealing with maybe 17 or 18 players, things happen. And so I think more than anything, that's how I see that, is that if you're really successful, and that's, you've got a lot of successful college coaches, what am I giving up? What's the trade-off here to become a Laker coach or whatever NBA program it is, team it is that in 2 or 3 years it can just turn real quickly. And you're not only dealing with coaching situations and leadership situations and management, but you're also dealing with players. And not very often do players get coaches fired, but in the NBA that does happen. It could happen in college, but it's not prevalent like it is. So there's unsettling things in the NBA in terms of long-term security, and it's not all like that. But that's just when I think about the NBA and I think about security and where that's at. Change happens quickly, and it can be a player that gets you fired. It can be a GM that gets you fired. It can be, regardless of what you've done, and they're listening to the public, they're listening to the talking heads, and just too much unsettling things for me when you look at it. So it's not surprising that he didn't take the job.
How big a pull is home for a lot of coaches? I mean, for the coaches, it is a big pull. Do they get out of coaching because coaching requires people to move so much? Because PK's brought up, Hurley's a Jersey guy. Stores is just on the other side of New York City, basically. Why the heck go out to L.A. if you're at home and you value it? How many coaches think like that?
The guy who went home here.
Yeah, right.
Steve Cleveland did that.
He went back to Fresno.
Yep. No, I think of my own experience and a lot of things that, because I think, I have not really even shared this probably publicly, but I will just tell you this, that the experience that I had at BYU was unbelievable. And it was hard. It was hard. You're talking about a time when the program was really struggling and there was just so much uncertainty. And to be involved in something that you rebuild, it can wear you out, but some of my greatest memories are the coaches, the players. So much respect and what we were able to do. It's so different now. I'm thinking of the change of BYU now and what that looks like and what it looked like when I came here. But as you go through that process, and that last year that I had at BYU was really difficult on me. We had expectations, and we had great young people in the program that I was excited about. And I kind of went through a real difficult time personally. And I never had thought about leaving BYU ever. And then when that happened, even to this day, obviously going back to my hometown to kind of rebuild another program, and financially there were benefits there that I did not have at BYU, but it was never kind of about the money. It was always about an opportunity. And in my gut and my feelings as I went back home, what I thought was going to be just a great thing, there were some things I underestimated, in terms of where they really were. And there wasn't the kind of transparency that I thought we'd have with the president of the school and the AD of them when they'd actually find me. And it was just one of those things that when I got there, things weren't as they were. And I don't have any regrets, because I loved going back there and trying to rebuild this thing. And we did. We got through some. And we've talked about this on the show before, just going to the NC2A and meeting with them and dealing with the death penalty and all the things that were happening. Those weren't things I expected when I got there. It just hadn't been taken care of, and maybe I didn't ask all the right questions. But I'll never regret going back to Fresno. I first of all, I had so many friends, so many experiences as a high school and a junior college coach, and the players I have lifelong relationships with. But it was way harder than I thought it was going to be, and things outside of my control. So, yeah, guys do leave, and it happens all the time. I feel like I just had two great experiences. I was so blessed to even be there. It was my path in college coaching wasn't logical. Didn't really make sense. We're not hiring junior college guys and nobody know, and whatever the circumstances are. I'm glad they had the faith in me to do it, and that staff with Dave and Heath and just everybody that was involved in that program. We'll never forget those times.
And that beat writer for the Tribune.
Yes, one of my dear friends today. No, you know what I loved about you, Pat, is that you always told me how you really felt. You didn't sugarcoat things, but I appreciated that. It actually helped me be a better coach. You asked hard questions. I hadn't been asked a hard question at the high school or junior college level once, and all of a sudden you jump into this position, and every coach goes through it. Kevin Young, who has got a pedigree unlike anybody, he's going to have experiences in college that he never had in the NBA. And people are going to ask, and not that he didn't get asked hard questions. When you're not the head coach, you don't get asked the hard questions. But when you're an assistant, you don't really. That's not a reflection of who you are. That's the head coach, and I'm sure that Coach Young, who I love everything he's doing, but he's going to go through experiences here that he's not had before. Even though he's been at the highest level, he hasn't been the one that had to be accountable for everything that was going on.
Right.
And I don't have any question he's going to handle it. But it is different. And so for me, that's what I loved about you, Pat, is that you made me think. And when I went home, I thought, man, I didn't think about that, and the perception or whatever the thing was or whatever decisions I made. So I didn't really look for the media to help me with my coaching. But interestingly enough, there were times where there's Pat or anybody else that would ask me hard questions, got me to think, and got me to be better. Because sometimes I did need to make changes. I did need to think about my staff, and I needed to think about, the personnel that we had and what we're doing. And it's every day. And again, like I said, I spent 12, 13 years in high school, another 7 or 8 in Duke. So 20-some years, I never really ever had anybody ask me a really hard question. And then, well, you jump into this, and it's completely different. So it helped me. It helped me become a better coach. My experience in Fresno, I will never regret going back there, but it was really hard. And I was surprised with some things that I had to go through with the NC2A and all the things that happened. But I have great memories there. And obviously, being here in Utah, being back here and seeing players and former players and coaches, this was BYU was kind of a life-changing experience for me. It took me down a path that I didn't really ever think would happen and really hadn't been a dream of mine to be a head coach. And God bless Lynn Archibald for, reaching out to me and, and sharing things with me and just telling me, you need to get involved in this. And so there was a lot of people that really helped me there. But anyway, that's my take on that. And it's just, I'm just so grateful to have been in this business and to be with great people and to be with great people like yourselves, who have helped me refine my process and help me be a better coach.
You talk about Kevin Young, and, man, he's just taken this town by storm, and he hasn't even coached a game yet. And as I look at the way he's doing his stuff, it seems to me, I talked about this with DJ, that he's really in a win-now mode because, he made hires of guys who have connections and can get him players right now. And you look at BYU historically, the way they've had success is through grinding and building rather than instant success. And so he's got this kid, the Agor kid is supposed to be a potential lottery pick next year, 25 draft. If it works out, he might be one and done. I mean, you can't turn down that kind of talent if that talent wants to come, for sure. But at the same time, the one and done, you raise an eyebrow on that, and you wonder the way BYU's path to success has been. You get some top-end talent, and then you get some role players that you develop. You look at Akina Young. By the time I think you brought him in, and he became a league MVP. Well, he wasn't that when you first got him, right? And there's a number of guys that I can cite, but you got this top-end talent, and it might only be here for 35 games, but you got to take it. Just give us your thoughts on all that as he tries to build this thing into what he wants.
You know what? Those are great thoughts because traditionally it has taken time. As it has in most colleges where it takes time. And now, unless you're Kentucky and some of those folks who have had 40 or 50, NBA draft picks and stuff, I think Kevin. I haven't talked to Kevin, so I don't know him. Everybody that I've talked to just loves him and what he's doing. And you're right. It is a different time and a different process than what most, especially at BYU, has gone through. And I think the one thing that coming into that situation was change and lots of energy. I can't fault him at all for this path down the road with trying to get guys for a year. You're right. And typically when you talk about BYU basketball, it's building and developing. It's developing. And even when, I looked at my teams, I looked at all the teams with Coach Rose and all the success he had and what he did. We found players. I was involved in the recruiting with most of those young men as well, but I just watched Coach. And over time, you just develop and you have that continuity, and you can have success long term. And with Coach Young, who's doing it a different way, doesn't mean it's not the right way. It's his way. And everything from the outside looking in appears to be, this could be really cool to bring in those type of high-level guys. And obviously with, the portal and NIL, there's so many things that exist today that maybe all of this is going to be the way the future is. And having guys stay in a program, because you're right, the success of BYU over the years has been keeping guys in the program for 2, 3, or 4 years and having that continuity, having that maturity, and allowing them to develop physically, mentally, and emotionally. In the one and dones, you're not going to have that. And so I think the key thing for me is that whoever a great young man he is, this coaching staff certainly knows this young man. They know people when he was at Real Madrid. And they're not going to take individuals that are not good people, but it is one of those things that it's so different that you start to ask questions. Is this the right way to do it? You know what? I think we give time to see maybe it is the right way to do it. It's time for change. And I think over time we'll see that. But I still believe long term that the development part of players staying in a program for 2 or 3 or 4 years is the focus of BYU. I can't imagine them completely getting away from that because I just think that's why they've been able to have long-term success for a long time. Maybe not winning national championships, and maybe this is the process. Maybe this is how we go about getting to Sweet 16s and getting to, Final Eights and getting to a Final Four and winning a national championship. This might be the model to make that happen because it hasn't happened at BYU. And so adding some elite European players and getting into the portal and spending the money to get outstanding talent, that's probably going to be the new look for all of college basketball. But it's a real change for BYU. There's no question about it. And I'm kind of excited to see what happens. I have faith in that administration. And even though the only person I know is Chris Burgess, who is a dear friend, but I just, everything I see about these guys seems to be like they're making the right steps at the right time in a different time for college basketball. It's just not BYU. I mean, when you start looking at the NIL, when you start looking at the ability to go to school at 4 different schools in 4 years, you have to be prepared to change and deal with that, because if you don't get control of that, you don't have control of that thing, it can all come crumbling down. And so the fact that you've got 6 or 7 guys, that you have a chief of staff, and that you've got different assistants with different roles, well, all that's always been part of it. But I think these guys now have a lot more responsibility and a role in helping navigate this, because the navigation of what college basketball is today requires a real attention to detail. And I love what Kevin Young has done, and I can't wait to meet him and talk to him and see where this is going. But I just think that it is different, and because it's different doesn't mean it's not the right way to do things. Maybe this is the right way to go forward, moving forward, especially when, as you said, Pat, when you look back and you think BYU's success, long-term success, even though it's not at the highest level, has been because they developed players and stayed in the program and didn't have a lot of transfers. But that's not the world we live in anymore. And maybe to get to win a national championship or get to Final Fours, which every coach has a dream to do, maybe this is a better path, and we'll just have to see how it plays out. But I'm excited about it, to watch it. Not, obviously BYU, I'm so connected to that school, but it's just fun to watch college basketball and to see the changes that are being made and what's being done, and just such an attention to detail that you got to surround yourself with really good people. I will just make one last comment on this is, again, not knowing Kevin Young, but just from the outside looking in, he's brought in people that he knows, that he has relationships with, that yes, a lot of them have coached maybe in the NBA, some of them have been in college and so forth. But that staff of men and the support that they're going to need, you got to have that trust, and you've got to have a really tight staff. And it appears that Kevin has that. He has relationships with these guys, and it's going to be a fun journey for me to watch and all of us to watch and see how it plays out. And you know what? You guys get to get on the radio every day and talk about it.
Yep.
But, the good, the bad, and everything that goes with it. But I'm excited. I'm excited, and I think it is. We live in a world now that change is okay. And that this is a new direction. You can never get away from relationships and a work ethic and trust and all of the character traits that one needs to keep a team together. I don't care who's on your roster. If those guys, you don't have that chemistry, don't worry about winning championships or getting to the Final Four. And I can't imagine this group not having that attention to detail and making sure that all those things are in place, and that the intangibles become just as important as the talent if things are right.
Steve Cleveland, former BYU and Fresno State basketball coach, join us here on The Zone. Steve, thanks for a few minutes. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
When we come back, a U.S. Open update with Brian Taylor next. Stay with us.
This is DJ and PK, Utah's highest-rated sports radio morning show for over 20 years.
Ridiculously good.
Presented by Murdoch Hyundai, Utah's #1 Hyundai dealer for 16 years in a row on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This Uinta Golf U.S. Open update is brought to you by Mountain Land Supply, Zions Bank, Black Desert Resort, Hoops Vision, and Siegfried and Jensen. And now, Real Golf Radio's Brian Taylor.
DJ, PK, and BT. Brian, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How we doing?
Good. Usually we can really hash this out, and there's a million things to talk about, but right now it feels like with the U.S. Open on the horizon, we have to just say Scheffler or the field. Who you got?
Yeah, you know what? Do you remember when we used to do this? We've been doing this a long time, right? All the way back to when Tiger was getting asked that question, Tiger or the field. And I remember, DJ, specifically, you and I debated this a little bit, and it seemed like you were almost foolish to pick either one, right? I mean, statistically, you'd be foolish to pick, one player over the field, and yet Tiger was that one player that seemed to, be the sure bet, almost the better bet during his heyday. So now we got Scottie Scheffler doing Tiger-like things, right? Dominating. I mean, the first player to win 5 times before the U.S. Open since I think it was like Arnold Palmer in 1962. So he's doing some amazing things. So you start to say, well, is this Scottie's to lose? Yeah, but Scottie versus the field, I still think that's probably a little bit of a foolish bet. I think I'd take the field on that. But, man, the guy, with what he's doing with Ted Scott, there's only 2 things that have been able to stop him so far. Basically, an arrest and Ted Scott going to his daughter's graduation. So none of those things are expected to happen this week. So you like Scottie's chances for sure.
You talk about the field, and I was listening to Hank Haney, and he blasted the USGA and all this stuff because he said the field is weak. It's one of the weakest, if not the weakest, U.S. Open field. And then he went down, and it's basically, as I took it, he called it the LIV, not the live. He spelled it out, or pronounced it that way, in terms of guys not being available to participate in this tournament, and he thought that it was a joke. So he calls the field weak, which may help Scheffler. But what are your thoughts on the weak field, according to Hank Haney?
Well, I mean, there's only essentially 2 players not inside the top 50. I think what he's probably alluding to is the question marks surrounding the world rankings, and
yes.
Is it still a viable, system?
Well, that was his point.
Given
no.
That LIV. Now, I would say that the world rankings are certainly skewed at this point in time. They've always been interesting because they're on a 2-year rolling cycle. And so if you take a few tournaments off, you basically just have finishes that are dropping. Points are just dropping off every week. They click off, that kind of thing. So, you could have a hot run and it'll hold on for only so long once it starts ticking away. And so you got guys that are falling in the world rankings. But I don't know. I mean, I would like to know who are the guys that he was pointing out that aren't in this field, that need to be in this field in order to justify it being a strong field. And I can't think of any. I mean, we're not going to go back to the Taylor Gooch thing again, right?
He lists him and Neiman, among others.
Yeah, so we could we could maybe we could go to the Caitlin Clark discussion here, right?
Let's do it.
I mean, do we really care if we're tuning in to watch it because Neiman is better than, I don't know, pick a guy that's popular but maybe shouldn't be as high in the world rankings as what Joaquin Neiman is? Is Joaquin Neiman really moving the needle when it comes to major championship golf? I mean, is Caitlin Clark moving the needle when it comes to women's basketball? It's undisputed. So then why wouldn't she be on the Olympic team? I think those are some of the things where you're like, let's look at it for what it is. We do want the best players competing for the highest prizes, if you will, right? But you also have to understand that there is nobody that puts on an event that doesn't want to have a star-studded leaderboard going into the weekend that causes people to tune in and watch, get the eyeballs, get the advertising dollars, get everything that they need in order to make a successful event. And so when I look at this, I'm like, look, we got 78 of the top 100 players in the field this week, right? Or, I don't know how you go down the list. Scotty Scheffler, Colin Morikawa, Rory McIlroy, Xander Schauffele. I mean, we could stop right there and it's going to be exciting. But then you also got Bryson's in there, Tony's in there. Oh, Patrick Reed's not in.
Right.
And that's going to make you. Are you going to tune out? Are you going to go play golf Saturday instead of watching the U.S. Open because Patrick Reed's not playing?
Well, yeah, because I want to know he's going to be able to cheat and get away with it.
There's a lot of sand here. He is known for his sand tactics. So
the people of Chile hate you now because you dismissed Joaquin Neiman.
Oh, come on! Look, I actually enjoy Joaquin Neiman's game. It's not against Joaquin Neiman. The point is you make a decision to go play somewhere else, and that's the consequences of it. So be it. It's not the end of the world. It doesn't reduce this championship by any stretch of the imagination.
Rahm's playing. Cam Smith is playing. Koepka's playing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so that to me.
Playing,
and for the other live guys, can they go through the U.S. Open qualifiers, or is there some barrier there?
No, they can go. Some of them chose not to go play in the U.S. Open qual. And that's the other thing that should be pointed out. This is the U.S. Open. It's not the U.S. Invitational. So, you do have the opportunity to jump in and go through qualifying. Adam Scott did that. Sergio did that. Sergio did it and missed, but then he got in as an alternate. Adam Scott just missed, got in as an alternate, right? So, going through the process gives you an opportunity.
All right, we've got our draft coming up with Bob, and we will talk to you on, later in the week on Thursday, and you will assess our draft opportunities. Do you have a name on the way out the door other than Scheffler that we should be looking at?
Joaquin Neiman.
Yeah, Bob wanted me to tell you Bob wanted me to make sure that y'all pick Joaquin Neiman and Patrick Reed.
Yeah, I'll take Reed and Neiman and see how that works for me. Pick a couple guys more in it.
I will tell you that he said don't bring up Colin Morikawa. So he did tell me to say not bring up Colin Morikawa. So
okay,
I didn't bring up Colin Morikawa, just so you know.
That a kid. All right, thank you, Brian. We love it. Appreciate you coming on.
Okay, see you, boys.
Brian Taylor, Real Golf Radio, here on Saturday mornings right here on The Zone. Coming up, David Dwork, Florida Panther writer for the Hockey News, is going to join us at 9:05. Up next, the Lakers. Are they humiliated? And is there an opportunity out there that would double down on the humiliation? I mean, it won't happen, but if it did, would that really be brutal? We'll get to that next. Stay with us.
The guys you know and trust, talking about the teams you can't live without. This is DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Qualifying winners for the U.S. Open You Win a Golf giveaway. It is time, people. Caller 12, 801-575-ZONE. Right now, will be entered to win. You could qualify, 801-575-ZONE. The 12th caller will qualify and will be given a golfer. And if that golfer wins the U.S. Open, you'll receive the same brand driver that player has at the U.S. Open. Call right now, 801-575-ZONE. More qualifiers coming up later this morning. PK, the question of the morning. What does it say that Dan Hurley turned down the Lakers? Josh says, it says the NCAA season is half as long. It says that Hurley is the king at UConn. Says the Lakers coach has to answer to LeBron, not the other way around. Says that Hurley's an East Coast guy and that if this were the Knicks' job, it might be a different decision. Now, the Knicks are coming off a big season, so we don't expect them changing coaches. I think they were pretty happy with the step forward they took. But do you think Hurley would do that?
Yes.
The Knicks and the Celtics and the Sixers keeps him close enough to Jersey.
Well,
those are big-time jobs.
It's his Jersey.
Yeah. The Knicks is across the river.
I mean, he was 5 minutes away.
Right.
Yeah.
But not the Lakers or Warriors. But
I see where you're going, because based on my experience as a kid and still having a ton of family there, and it's no surprise, you can figure it out living no matter where you live, that the Knicks are where it's at. That's the pinnacle for those folks back there.
For a guy who wants to win, the Celtics and Sixers aren't that far away. The Nets and the Wizards seem to have issues that maybe you wouldn't want to go near because you're not going to win.
But everyone was a Knicks fan.
Right. The Knicks.
It just...
Josh.
You had Jets and Giants kind of took each other apart a little bit, split them, I mean.
Oh, really?
But
I always thought Giants was like 80-20, 70-30 over Jets fans. But Knicks is probably, in my mind, is like 95-5 or more.
Yeah.
I saw a list once. You'll love this because you hate it when I reference TV ratings. But I saw a list of all the TV ratings and, different markets. There's issues going on with distribution. But the two lowest rated teams, and they had to throw Toronto out because of Canada. But of the U.S. teams, the lowest rated teams were the Nets and the Clippers.
And TV ratings?
And TV ratings. Like, you can go into those markets 5 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. You can go into those markets and you sell tickets because people want to see the NBA and stars are coming through town, and there's lots of companies to sell to. But are you really going to capture the soul of the city when you're competing with the Lakers and the Knicks? No.
I can remember as a kid, when you'd go shopping and you'd go by the TV section and the TVs would be on. And when the Knicks were playing, every TV
was on the Knicks.
Yeah, like 30
and
TVs.
People would stop in front of them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right.
And you'd sit there, or stand there, with people you grew up with, your neighbors, you knew, people in the community, and you'd talk about the game while you were shopping. I remember that. I remember it vividly as a kid.
Well, that's a good post from Josh. Josh, good job right there, bringing that up. Excellent.
And I had read stuff or heard stuff about that it would be a different situation. It's why they didn't think he would go that way.
He's not closing the door on the NBA.
No, I think he's openly talked about it.
The coast-to-coast move.
Now that he's won two titles, he can openly talk about anything. He wants to start talking about politics, he can do that.
He can. But there is a difference between talking about it and being serious about actually doing it.
Certainly, but he has broached it.
He has, right. I've read the quotes. Yeah. They're out there.
And if that's something that he wants to do and he's still young enough, the conversation and context that I heard was that he wanted to make his mark at coaching because he sucked as a player compared to his brother. Which that was a little harsh.
Because your brother was awesome.
Right. But he still played college ball.
Right.
He stayed local at Seton Hall.
Right.
I mean,
but he didn't just play college ball. I mean, there's 300 and, I don't know, whatever. I don't know how many there were when he played. 350 schools. And, I mean, if you're in the Big East,
right, that's what I'm saying.
Top 100 of those.
But the way he said it, compared to his older brother,
I know, but
his older brother had all the success and won the titles. Blah,
I know,
blah,
but people in Jersey are harsh, right? So it was a harsh take, but
tend to be hard on themselves, believe it or not, which I think you can.
I can.
So he was talking about how he was making his mark over here, and he's certainly been better than his brother in the coaching aspect of it, although he's probably got an easier job. Oh, did you hear what he said, too? I think it was in the Final Four, one of the press conferences. He said, well, they don't give him the support out there. If they'd give him the support,
he'd get it done.
Yeah. And he really went hard on it, and it was something that people were like, whoa. I mean, and you have to sit back and think, okay, is Bobby really a crappy coach, or is he just in somewhat of a wasteland? And then at that point, and stuff that I heard is they went over in Tempe and started dumping a bunch of money into it, And now he's got 2 or 3, 4 or 5-star guys who've come aboard.
But the best argument for this is what you were saying last season, is there are all these former Sun Devils who are playing well for NCAA tournament teams and all transferred out.
Yeah.
Well, none of them, not one of them that I heard, and I think you would have said it. If I'd missed it, you would have heard it. Not one of them blasted Hurley. They all went for a better opportunity.
Right.
And so I think, yeah, he's sticking up for his brother, and so you got to factor that in. But at the same time, there's not a little bit of truth to what he's saying. There's a lot. And the fact is, if you're at a school that's trying to be good in football, the basketball has to take a back seat. And Hurley's at a school where football takes a back seat to basketball. They're relatively new to football.
Dan Hurley, yeah.
Yeah, the UConn job, basketball is really, really important. I mean, it's football, but it wouldn't be a stretch to say it's the third most important sport on campus. And football needs to be important, so I'm sure they're investing in it. But women's basketball there, they expect Final Fours and national titles.
Yeah, they just signed Uriema too.
Yeah, they just gave him 5 years.
And he's like 70.
Yeah. So I get why sitting at UConn and seeing what he gets, he would look out at his brother at Arizona State and think, yeah, you guys are.
Yeah.
First off, the Pac-12 isn't invested enough in sports. They probably think that. And then secondly, they think they're too invested in football and they ought to be helping a basketball program.
Right.
And the way good players have left that program, it's hard to argue with them. When we come back, Stanley Cup Finals. Florida up 2-0. David Dwork covers the Florida Panthers for the Hockey News. He's going to join us next. Stay with us.
This is DJ and PK, Utah's highest rated sports radio morning show for over 20 years.
Ridiculously good.
Presented by Murdoch Hyundai, Utah's #1 Hyundai dealer for 16 years in a row on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
You have a chance to win big every week on The Zone. This week on Win Ticket Wednesday, you can win a 4-pack of sweet tickets to see the comedian of Theo and Vaughn. Theo Vaughn's going to be at the Maverick Center on June 30th. Listen all day on The Zone for your chance to win on Wednesday, every Wednesday, right here on The Zone. David Dwork joins us now, Florida Panthers writer for the Hockey News. David, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. How's everything on your side of the country?
It's trending towards hockey. How about that?
I love it.
The city is not just the city. The state is very excited to be getting an NHL team. People who don't normally talk about sports are talking hockey. Wow, hey, do you think we're going to be able to get tickets? I'm like, yeah.
Pucks up.
If you got enough cash in your wallet, there's going to be a little competition for those tickets. So good luck with that. And, of course, we're following the Stanley Cup a little differently, right? It's always an event that's on TV, but somehow now, we're gonna have a horse in the race, so it hits a little differently. And so I was looking around after the game, and the teams that go up 2-0 are 49-5 in Stanley Cup Finals history. The combination of how well Florida's playing and that stat, does it feel like the Panthers have this, or does it feel like going to Edmonton, things very much hang in the balance?
It's a little bit of both at the moment. I think, obviously, there's a lot of happiness that the Panthers have had this much success to this point, and then it's kind of shined through in the first 2 games of the final against an Edmonton team that probably brought some challenges that they had yet to face during their playoff run. But that being said, the big, looming dark cloud right now that's literally hovering over South Florida as we're soaked by rain today is the injury to Sasha Barkov on that hit from Leon Draisaitl late midway through the third period last night. There has been no real information on what Barkov is the injury, how it's going to play out. Paul Maurice came into his press conference, and this is a guy who we've been talking all playoffs about how light he is, how funny he is with the media. He's just very awesome with us, and he was pissed. He was not pleased. He was very salty. And short answers, so that's really the concern. Barkov has been such an important part of what Florida has done in this series in terms of defending Edmonton's top stars, to the point where McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman have combined for that one assist that McDavid got last night on their only goal of the series. If you remove Sasha Barkov from the equation, I think it changes a lot for the Panthers. They are incredibly deep, but he's their best player. he's ridiculous. And it's his defense that really sets him apart. In this series, it's more valuable than perhaps in any of the other postseason series that they played to get to this point. So right now, it's obviously great that they're up 2-0. They're in a great spot. As you said, it's like a 91% success rate when you go up 2-0. But when you lose your best player potentially for, who knows, 1 game, 2 game, we have no idea at this point. It's obviously going to be a little bit jarring.
On the broadcast, they were talking about possible ejection. Were you surprised that did not happen over this play?
I was surprised that the officials did not call it a major on the ice and then give themselves the opportunity to review the video and get the call right, which I think has been a great tool for them this season when they have the option that if they're not sure about a play or if they are sure about a play, you call it a 5, you go over to the monitor, you get a good look at it. These are game-changing plays, obviously, in terms of the injury, the hit, and then also the supplemental discipline. I don't understand why that wasn't the case. I'm curious now how the league is going to handle it, because when looking at the hit, obviously it looks like, A, the head was the principal point of contact, and B, he absolutely left his feet with the intention of leaving his feet. You can see he bends his knees to brace himself to raise up when he delivers a hit.
Right.
So, all the symptoms are there. How the league handles it, who knows? If Florida's best player is going to have to miss time, I think that will absolutely play into the decision of whether or not Leon Draisaitl has to miss any time, because now they're going back to Edmonton. Building will be rocking. It's going to be a crazy, crazy scene. If you remove their 1B best player for this, it'll even things out a little bit, but still, it's just an unfortunate thing. You never want to see these kind of plays decide a series this big, and hopefully it doesn't. Right now, it's just, it stinks because there's so much unknown.
David Dwork joined us, Florida Panthers writer for the Hockey News. I just happened to click. Well, I meant to click on a story about the game after the game. I happened to click on something from Edmonton, and man, they were going hard at how that game was refereed, how that thing was officiated, the number of no calls. Now, you get to the highest level, it doesn't matter, Super Bowl, NBA Finals, people don't want to see the referees taking over. They don't want the calls deciding it. But when the best players are getting slashed, or if a player is delivering what looks to a lot of people like something way outside the bounds, should they have taken more control of that game? Or is it just time to let them play and this stuff happens?
I think they are letting them play to a certain extent, and that's what you want. And as you said, in this point of the playoffs, just let them play. As long as they're not doing anything vicious or crazy, just let it go. And look, I think there's going to be a little bit of annoyance in the officiating on both sides. Obviously, Florida's got their beef with the big hits, but there was a hooking penalty on Matthew Tkachuk last night that was very questionable. There was a tripping call, I think, on Carter Verhaeghe that was a little okay. They're really going to call that at this point of the season. And look, again, you take the good with the bad, and it goes both ways, but the Oilers fans are down 2-0, so I understand why they're a little bit frustrated. But I think the officiating has not been what we'd hope it would be, but I don't think it's been really skewed one way or the other. There have been big hits on both sides. There have been quote unquote missed calls on both sides. There's been a lot that they've let go, and there's been things that I questioned why they called it. It's been even enough to this point. I'm trying to remember the power play numbers off the top of my head. I think Florida has had one more through the first 2 games, but forgive me if I'm off on that. I just know Florida has gone 7 for 7 on the PK against Edmonton's, vaunted power play that was going at like a 36% success rate heading into the series. And they got a power play goal last night, and it was after all the shenanigans. So, we'll see how it plays out with the officiating. I'm curious because it's going to be as crazy and loud as it was in South Florida, and it was awesome. It's going to be a totally different beast when you get up to Edmonton and the Stanley Cup final in a Canadian city like Edmonton, of all, one of the coolest Canadian hockey cities that there has been. So I don't know. I hesitate to go too hard into the officiating, but again, after what happened last night, I'm kind of taking the wait and see. I've been okay with the minor penalties, the way they've called it. How they're going to handle this situation is going to be another story.
How much money would you win if you had put down as MVP being Evan Rodriguez?
All the money. I would have won all the money. No, that's the thing that we're, going into the series, we're talking about who's going to win the Conn Smythe. Barkov would be a favorite. Bob obviously would be a favorite. Matthew Tkachuk led the team in points. Carter Verhaeghe led the team in goals. And now all of a sudden, Evan Rodriguez comes out of nowhere, 3 goals and 2 points in the Stanley Cup final, looking amazing. And a big part of that, to be fair, is Evan Rodriguez got moved up late in the conference final to that second line with Sam Bennett and Matthew Tkachuk, and that line is just constantly driving offense, regardless of who's on that wing, whether it's Carter Verhaeghe or now with Evan Rodriguez. It's just been that's the kind of the thing with this Florida Panthers team is the way that they can interchange guys on different lines, and everybody just kind of rolls with it. They've gotten so good at this 5-man game that Paul Maurice has implemented over the last couple of seasons that the line matchups don't really matter as much. They're all so good at understanding where I need to be, what routes I need to take, who I need to cover for when they go to theirs. The assignments are just so well understood by this team. So I think that plays a big part of it as well. The depth, the camaraderie, the way that they're understanding Paul Maurice's systems, it just lets everybody flourish, whether it's an Evan Rodriguez or a Vladimir Tarasenko. It's worked out well to this point, and now they're 2 wins away from their ultimate goal, right?
Talent, quality, schemes, assignments, all that stuff matters. But how much at this level is determined just by, I don't want to say it's a fluky play because it's incredible hand-eye coordination, but it gets so hard to score in so many goals, or somebody takes a slap shot at 100 miles an hour, and your ability to get a stick on it and redirect it and yet keep it on goal is scoring big game-changing goals. So it seems like there's a fluky element to it, because getting your stick on precisely the right angle on something that's coming at you 100 miles an hour seems borderline impossible.
Yeah, you can work amazingly hard to get yourself in the right position as much as possible, and there's always going to be an element of puck luck that plays into the situation. I think we saw a lot of that in Game 1. As amazing as Sergei Bobrovsky played, there was certainly a big element of puck luck that played into some of the pucks that stayed out, whether it was deflections. Game 2 last night, I think Edmonton hit 3 posts in a very short amount of time. 2 of them came on the same power play. So there's a lot that plays into it. But these players, they know that. They want to get themselves in the best positions as possible so that way they can make a good play if they have the opportunity. Deflections, crazy shots, those things are just part of the game. But these guys are so skilled that they know if they can get themselves where they should be, that they're going to be able to control the game as much as they can. And at this point, that's really all you can ask for.
As they move north, one of the things that I think that works in Florida's favor is the defense we hear can travel. And I'm not a hockey expert, but I expect it to be what would be the reason why they at least get a split. Could you expound on that?
Yeah, well, it's part of why Florida has been so good this year is just the way they've defended and the way that they've been able to perform, whether it's home or on the road. They kind of enjoy those road environments. Florida tied Dallas for most road wins during the regular season, and now Florida's been the best road team during the playoffs. They almost kind of relish going into another building and shutting up the fans and just doing something that people would think is incredibly hard, whether it's going into Boston over the last 2 playoffs and going, I think, 6-1 or whatever it is in that incredibly difficult building, going up to Madison Square Garden and taking 2 out of 3 in the conference final. It's just part of why the systems have been good. Like, it's not home, away, matchups, injuries. They just play this style that's going to come at you and hit you in the face. And over the course of, I guess, the last 18 months or so, since right around December, January last year, when really things turned for Florida, this has just been, it's almost robotic in that they know how to go out there and perform. Doesn't matter what building they're in, doesn't matter who they're playing, doesn't matter who's on the ice. There was a game earlier this season where they were missing Barkov and Anton Lundell, and they took the Rangers to a shootout at MSG. It's confidence at this point. They've been doing it for so long. And in my head, as I'm saying all this, I just keep going back to that one thing is that they've been doing everything well, but then what about Sasha Barkov against these incredibly elite defenders? So I feel like I'm like kind of hedging my own bets as I'm speaking, but I mean, that's what it is at this point of the final, right? Like, it's been crazy, and now you have this potential giant wrench that you have to deal with.
David Dwork joined us, Florida Panthers writer for the Hockey News. 31 years without a Canadian team winning. Do you have an explanation for why this has stretched across the decades?
I would say the league is a lot bigger now. In the 70s, 80s, there was probably a third less teams. There was no salary cap back then, so it was a lot easier to keep the band together, as we saw with like those crazy Oilers teams of the Islanders of the 80s. The game has changed. Obviously, there's a lot of the talent has just gone over just crazy compared to the hockey that we grew up or that I grew up with in the late 80s and 90s. I just think it's a lot harder to sustain success. And what's happened with Tampa the last few years, and now what Florida is trying to build, it's incredibly difficult. So I don't think that there's anything, there's no Canadian curse or anything like that. I think it's just a matter of the league growing and Canadian teams, there's only 6 of them. There weren't 6 of them the whole time either because Winnipeg wasn't around. I hope for them that they eventually get it. Maybe not this year, but as a hockey fan myself, I love going to Canada. I respect what hockey means to them, and I almost expected it to be like a us against the world mentality for Florida when they went up there. Thinking like the entire country was going to get behind the Oilers for that very reason. And I did a little writing on that. I did a little, social media on that. And the pushback that I got from Canadian hockey fans who were telling me there's no bleeping way they would ever root for the Edmonton Oilers. So maybe it's not as communal as some of us south of the border thought, but either way, it will be incredibly cool to see when that happens and when they do break that record. Maybe next year, just not right now.
David, we appreciate a few minutes. Thanks for joining us, and enjoy the trip to Edmonton.
My pleasure, fellas. We'll see you. Welcome to the league, right? We'll see you again soon.
Yeah, enjoy the trip to Edmonton. I don't think I've ever said that before. Thank you, David.
Take care.
Florida Panthers writer for the Hockey News right there. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. When we come back, what have you missed? Over the course of the last 3.5 hours, we'll get you up to speed. Stay with us.
For all of you less motivated listeners, it's time for your 9 o'clock. Where the heck have you been headlines?
Where you at?
With DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Nominate the youth sports volunteer that you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at kslsports.com/contest and then listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week, sponsored by Hercules Credit Union and Beehive Meals.
So for those of you who weren't here earlier in the show, it's time to get you up to speed. The former Detroit Piston, Los Angeles Laker, turned prominent broadcaster for a while. I don't know what John Sally's doing these days. Was walking off the court after a game. PK can't remember a regular season, postseason, who knows what. And the Lakers had just won, and he hit the tunnel saying, "That's the way." And he pointed at you, and you said,
I like it.
And he kept giggling and walking to the locker room. The band of the day, old school, KC and the Sunshine Band, who I actually found really annoying. But
what?
Yes, they were totally annoying.
Oh, Casey himself?
47 years ago today, I'm Your Boogeyman went number 1. So,
and I just love that you have to say I'm your boogeyman.
I'm glad you're happy. Many things to catch you up on.
I just wish it would have been Get Down Tonight.
Darvin Ham is going back to Milwaukee, he says, moving on. He will join Doc Rivers' staff there, the former Laker coach. The new Laker coach will not be Dan Hurley. He's turned down 6 years and $70 million and will return to chase a third straight national title at UConn, saying he is humbled by the entire experience. Why, oh why, did he turn that job down? And you put it mostly on Jersey guy has got a good thing in his own backyard, metaphorically speaking, if Storrs, Connecticut can be Jersey's backyard. He's got something right down the street. And to go all the way out to L.A., not that appealing.
Apparently it wasn't.
Home has called. The Lakers now have to pivot. And the local media is embarrassed for them. It's embarrassing they can't get there to the guy. They're the Lakers. No one should turn them down.
Right.
This is a glamorous. Is it really? It's not as glamorous to me as it used to be. I mean, they did have it going on. But 6 playoff series wins in 12 years, and 4 of those 6 in the bubble. They just haven't been at that level. 7th place finishes in the West. It's not the glory days.
No. They passed him by.
And I associate a lot of them with Jerry Buss, and Jerry Buss ain't walking through that door. Maybe they can ride L.A. and
though.
Hollywood, and maybe somewhere down the line another big star will want to go there.
Big star.
But they're not what they were. Nor do I expect them to be. So I had lower expectations. I don't see why they're embarrassed.
Which is great for the rest of us. Anytime you get rejected, it's embarrassed. Especially if you're the Lakers, it's embarrassing. No question, it's embarrassing.
Can't get their top choice.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a fatal blow. I certainly will give you that. Because who knows, the guy they may get may be better. We've seen that many times. Second, third choices, what have you, turn out to be just fine.
And at the pro level, the roster is so important, so we can go crazy over the coach. But
right,
even Phil Jackson finished 8th with the Lakers once. Why? Because they didn't have the talent at that point.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's the coach's job to win it all. I think it's the coach's job to get whatever talent level you've got manifest in the win-loss record. That's the job.
Get the best you can out of the guys you have. You're not
people
tasked.
Around here are going nuts about Will Hardy. Well, if you just look at the record, what's he done? Well, it's not fair to judge him by the record. Come on.
Has he gotten the most out of the talent there?
He's so new in it, and the talent is so raw that I can't make a complete evaluation. And the goal is to be able to make a complete evaluation, which will come given the increased success of the team. I assume we'll get there at some point. But right now, no. So they need to get the coach done before the draft, I would think. You'd want some input from the coach. And then they got to roll up the sleeves proverbially and go to work because they need a lot of work to be done on that team. I mean, he's just going to return the same guys? Well,
if you run it back, what do you think is going to happen?
It's going to be the same thing. Right? And there's no question to be the same thing.
Spent a lot of time talking about that with Steve Cleveland, a guy who did leave BYU and did go home to Fresno State. And there were some benefits to that, but as he said, there were some hidden surprises that he underestimated. Made the job harder.
Right.
So Hurley will stay with what he knows, at least for now. We have had listeners suggest, it would be different if it were the Knicks. And given his public statements about coaching professionally and testing himself, you think it might be different. I mean, the way he carries himself on the sideline, he's an excitable guy.
We are who we are.
Can he pace himself through an NBA season and not wear out NBA players who tend to have more leverage than the average
that
college
remains
player?
to be seen. Just because you have success at one thing doesn't mean you'll have success across the board. So he would have to make adjustments. And we'll see down the line if that were to come about. Who knows as far as that goes. And guys get fired at that level for winning. You didn't win enough.
Darvin Ham. Western Conference Final, his first year there. Out after 2. Didn't win enough.
Yeah, you can make the same case about Vogel. I mean, they're drafting 22nd, the Suns, which means 21 teams finish worse. But he's gone.
Didn't win enough.
Yeah.
NBA Finals on pause until Wednesday night.
Takes way too long.
I know. This 3 days to get playing Sunday and then play. That would be.
Get it over with, man.
A game, a day off, a game. Let's go. Play every other day.
Right.
At least 3 times in 7 days.
Give them a day if they got to travel.
When this game 3 and 4 are the only time they're playing with 1 day off. Everything else, they got 2.
Yeah. It drags out. And at a time of year when people have other stuff to do. More options in this time of year than in the winter.
They're losing their own momentum.
Yeah, I think so.
We don't have either a Stanley Cup final or an NBA Finals game tonight. Everybody's off. The Joker's decided to play in the Olympics. He has skipped other international tournaments, citing long NBA seasons. He is playing in this one. He's going to Paris. You're talking about men's basketball, and it'll get your attention. Well, that'll only make it more interesting.
Yeah, Jimmy Buffett's got a song. He went to Paris looking for answers to questions that bothered him so. And every time you say Paris, that's what I think of. And did you know, outside of Hilton Head, there's a Latitude Margaritaville community.
I did not know that.
55 and over. Yeah.
Did he own a share of it, or he licensed the name? Or
I have to.
Yeah.
He made up Margaritaville. It's not a real place.
What? That is now. And apparently it's right outside of a prominent golf community.
Correct.
It's literally a place on the map.
Yeah, it's about 20 miles away.
Mike Tomlin got a contract extension. Pittsburgh Steelers signed him up through 2027. He is the NFL's longest tenured coach.
Of course they
totally
would.
agree. It's an automatic in my mind. I would have done it in a heartbeat. The quarterback is so important in the NFL. Their quarterback play has not only been bad since Ben Roethlisberger. Roethlisberger slipped at the end.
Well, they all do.
And so, right, yeah, who goes out on top, right? And so the fact that they aren't having losing seasons with this subpar quarterback play, if they could get good quarterbacking, they'd be elite. If they got elite quarterbacking, I assume they'd be champs.
Ooh. They'd be in the running. I give you that. But to assume they'd win it all.
Not in any one given year. But if they have an elite quarterback and he's there for 10 years, they're going to win it at some point. I get your point. In any one year, stuff happens.
All right. I can see that.
But they've had a really good run here, considering that their quarterbacking play, nobody wants their quarterbacks.
You don't want Russell Wilson?
No, that's why he's been on 3 teams in 3 years. I guess literally by that somebody wants him because he's still in the league. But the fact that a quarterback's on 3 teams in 3 years suggests he's not exactly hitting it out of the park and dominating.
You don't want Justin Fields?
No.
Quarterbacking is a strange position, though, man.
Is. And maybe because I think they do have a decent team around them.
Right.
And Wilson was better, and I guess it'd be 3 teams in 4 years for Wilson because he did 2 in Denver. And his second year in Denver was better than his first. So even though he's not what he was at his peak, I don't think the tank is empty. And so with a pretty good team around him and a good coach, can they be a playoff team? Yes. How far can they advance in the playoffs, though?
Yeah, who they're playing, what level of health do they have?
And right now I look at Allen and Burrow and Mahomes and think, man, if you get in a game and you don't have a quarterback that matches those 3 guys' skill level, it is an uphill battle. It doesn't mean it can't be done and you can always win a game with 3 turnovers and blah, blah, blah. But it is an uphill battle to beat those 3 teams in the AFC. Now, Harbaugh is, bringing something to the Chargers here, and with Herbert, maybe they could take one of those 3, and Jacksonville's got to
do it overnight.
And probably not because they're having to rebuild with the cap. Jacksonville's got a young guy. I mean, those 3 aren't going to go undefeated in the playoffs. So it's not that you can't get them. And Burrow's been hurt, so when he's out, then Cincinnati isn't Cincinnati anymore. But
Tomlin reminds me of Kyle.
It's a tough deal. Yeah, I can see where you're going with that. Consistency, toughness, no excuses. We're going to get the most out of what we have.
Right.
And we're going to scrap, and we're going to scrap, and then we're going to scrap some more. And just when you think we're done, we're still grinding. If you let up, we'll get you.
The great thing about Kyle is in 2010, on Wednesday, October 21st at 2 p.m., you'd be doing the same thing as you were in October 21st, 2023.
There's a method and there's a pattern.
Yeah. And it works.
Whatever happens on October 1st of 2015 probably isn't going to be that different than what's happening on October 1st of 2025. The only thing you have to say is the day of the week, right? Mondays are different than Saturdays.
Right. I mean, it's the consistency day in and day out.
Yeah,
it's just I marvel at it.
Yeah.
And I see, I don't cover the Steelers like I do the Utes, obviously, but I see the same thing. It just seems like you get the same thing out of Tomlin. And Tomlin should be held up as an example of what it takes. And knowing that you're going to have down times in the NFL.
Yeah, but their downtimes are 8 to 10 wins.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right.
And you don't make these changes for change's sake. That drives me nuts when they do that. You want to make a change, if you got a reason for it, so be it. But it better not be, well, what the heck? Let's try something different. That drives me nuts. That just leads to failure at the pro level. And I think really at any level.
Well, when the Steelers have a losing season, let me know.
Okay. I'll call you.
I don't think they've had one in the last 20 years. They've had some 500 years, which you can't have anymore now with a 17-game season unless you go 8-8-1, but...
Well, could you not go 7-7?
3?
Yeah.
When's the last time an NFL team had 3 ties? It's happened, but it's not since they went to overtime. The other stuff that happened in this show that you missed, we talked a little golf with Brian Taylor. It has gotten to the point, Scotty Scheffler with his 5 tour wins. Scheffler or the field? Seems like you have to bet on the field, but the fact that it's even a question tells you how dominant Scheffler has been.
Absolutely.
Will he do it again this week? Wherever you get your podcast, listen to Brian Taylor on the U.S. Open and Bob Casper as well, because we had him Monday. David Dwork, Florida Panthers writer, joins us to talk Stanley Cup Finals. He covers the Florida Panthers for the Hockey News. So wherever you get your podcast, Brian Taylor, David Dwork, and former BYU coach Steve Cleveland. You can listen to them all. Your feedback next, man. All the Jazz fans who are Laker haters are lining up to explain to us why the Lakers still have a coaching vacancy, why Hurley stayed put. That's next. Stay with us.
And it's all over almost here.
Don't go nowhere.
And now, enough of us. It's time to hear from you. From all your texts, tweets, and posts. This is the best feedback of the day.
Ooh, I was there. It's the best game of my life.
With DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
We need another qualifier for the U.S. Open. You win a golf giveaway. Caller 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE, will be entered to win. The contest winner receives a new driver, the same brand as the winner of the 2024 U.S. Open. Call now, qualify right now at 801-575-ZONE. You'll find out who your golfer is, and then you can watch and see if he wins. Question of the morning, what does it say that Dan Hurley turned down the Lakers? Trey says he's choosing function over dysfunction.
I would choose confunction.
I don't think that's a word.
Oh, it was a group. Gun function? Look it up.
Okay.
Musical group.
Greg said, sadly, Dan is just really not a fan of Larry the Laker. Larry the Laker.
Look at that. I just typed in confunction, their greatest hits. See? I told you.
Okay. What is it?
Chase Me? Love's Train? Straight from the Heart?
Straight from the Heart. Straight from the Heart I might have heard of, yeah. Craig says the Lakers headed for a full rebuild. They aren't contenders in the immediate future, and Dan wants to win. Sourdough Papa says it's because the Lakers are drafting Bronny. He's not dealing with that.
Are they? Will he be drafted?
Bum, bum, bum.
He's not going to go in the first round, is he?
No, everyone's talking about the 55th pick. End of the second.
I can't drive 55.
Switch Mob 21 says, well, the truth is the Lakers job is the most toxic job in the NBA. Period.
Toxic?
Toxic.
What's toxic about it?
Toxic seems a bit strong. Jack says nobody wants to coach LeBron and get blamed for his failure.
I don't know that LeBron is getting blamed for failure.
No, I think the point Jack is going at is presented a little more precisely by Curtis, who says, well, in La La Land, you have a short leash and too many cooks in the kitchen. Other people get to make decisions. You don't have enough control over your destiny.
Yeah, and then Cleveland has a nice run. They get fired. Bickerstaff gets fired, and he was missing Mitchell for half the series. Vogel gets fired. And who has control over their destiny as an NBA coach? Popovich? Kerr?
Multiple championships. You get a little control. But until then, good luck.
Who really does? It's such a funky job. But yet, people want them. As they should.
6 years, $70 million. That'll get your attention. There's only 30 of these jobs. And you don't think going into it you're going to get Vogeled or Bickerstaffed. You think you're going to be Steve Kerr or Greg Popovich. Multiple titles.
That's the plan, But I think they're realistic on. I don't think Will Hardy thought he was going to be Greg Popovich.
Eleni says, Hurley was never interested. Danny was leveraging them to get more money at his current gig, which I support. Ha-ha!
You think he went through all that and he was never interested? And there's some talk that he contacted the Lakers.
I would imagine there's some level of interest and curiosity, but I don't know that he ever, in his own heart, thought he was more likely to go than he was to stay.
Only he can say that.
Right.
And his wife. Other than that, I don't know who could answer that, and what was his deciding factor or factors, and what was he looking for. I think that because he's spoken about a desire to potentially coach in the NBA, he investigated it with sincerity. To what degree remains to be seen, but it doesn't matter anymore.
So Robert B. says, Hurley's decision to stay at UConn tells us the Lakers are a bleep show. That's what it means.
And I would think that's what you'd want them to be. Yeah.
Let's click on this and see if Sir Robert is, Salt Lake City, Utah.
Yeah. It's fun to see them down. It's just that we've seen them down before, and then they get up. They're going to get up. It's just a question of when. They're not going to be the Clippers, the Warriors, the Suns won a decade with no playoff appearances. None of us see that.
10, 20, 40 years for those teams?
Yeah. What was the Warriors are like 14, 15 years?
I want to say 17. Like
that
one playoff.
Sacramento sucked for a number of
I thought
years?
it was one playoff team in one playoff team in 17. I thought I can look it up if you really care, but it's a long time.
Yeah, especially in a league that's designed to prevent that.
In theory, but it couldn't prevent it with the Warriors.
Right. Yeah, in Sacramento. After the Vlade and those Weber and those guys until recently.
Looking at the Lakers here, they were out of the conference finals for about 3 years post Jerry West before Kareem comes to town and they take off again. So, and then after Magic, they had a couple of first round exits and one lottery team, so they had 3 really down years, and then they were back to winning a playoff series.
Yeah, Smush Parker didn't develop the way they thought. Anthony Peeler.
Post Shaq, they had three bad years.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It tends to be what it is. But, it's new management now, so just because what was before doesn't mean it's going to be in the future. You still got to make, even if you have 1,000 advantages, you still have to make it good decisions. You got to do the right things, right? That'll never change.
Last 5 years, they've got a lottery, 2 first-round outs. They lost in the conference finals, and they won the title in the bubble. So it's kind of a mixed bag over 5 years. But 2 coaches got fired for those 5 years. I mean, that 5 doesn't sound bad. Jazz fans would take it for sure. 1 lottery, 2 first-round exits, a conference final, and an NBA title. If that's the next 5 years, Jazz fans are ecstatic.
Can you say that they're trending poorly because it's really only been 1 season? Because they are 1 season removed from a conference final. So I can't say just yet. It would appear as an aging team in the manner that the statues went from the finals to the first-round exit to the Kings. It's just Father Time takes over.
The 5 years this is the LeBron era. And the LeBron era has been all over the map.
And he's getting older.
Right.
And he's good, But he clearly isn't as great as he used to be.
And the fear is that he'll have more injuries as he gets older, and the down years here, not completely, but have been largely injury impacted. He had a couple times he shut it down at the end.
Yeah.
All right, DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. All Jazz fans care is that 2027 team is bad and that they're lucky in the lottery, and then the Jazz get that pick.
For sure, yeah. That matters.
2027 is where it's at. 2 more, LeBron.
God willing, we'll be here.
Then walk away.
Yeah.
DJ and PK, we're all done.
Break the wrist and walk away?
Jake.
Why do I bring that up?
Because it was a Confunction song.
No. It is a famous line in, you know what it is? What's his name?
Alex?
Alex. Do you know what break the wrist and walk away is? It is a line from Napoleon Dynamite. And Napoleon Dynamite debuted 20 years ago today.
Which is why Alex doesn't know it. Are you 24, Alex?
Yeah. You've heard of Napoleon Dynamite, haven't you? Don't.
It's a goofy movie. It's odd.
A cult classic, would you call it?
Absolutely a cult classic.
Yes.
It is funny to see them shoot scenes, and you're like, I've driven down that road. Those mountains off to the right, I know exactly where those mountains are.
20 years ago today.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Time flying. DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Jake and Ben are next.
All right, show's over. I'm tired.
Goodbye.
Well, until we meet again.
And be sure to join us at the same time tomorrow.